Chapter 261. I really should hang you from the street lamp. Don't just hang me alone. Quite a few priests have quietly done the same thing. The yellow-robed priest hummed. It's just that you're down on your luck now. Otherwise, you, a mere mortal. The first thing you must learn upon entering this place is to be sensible. You live and learn. But, Mr. Huang, aren't you being a bit reckless? The yellow-robed priest coughed, aware that he himself was now just a weak spiritual body, and under someone's roof, one must bow their head. Anyway, it's been quite some time since the temple was last opened, and although the paths are now chaotic and lacking priestly oversight, hence the higher threshold for entry, it also means there's no control. In the present world, many forces will not miss this chance and will pay any price to get a number of people in. I understand. All the officials' kids. Rich kids, young masters, and whatnot. And the resources of the temple are limited, so the competition will be 100 times fiercer than before, sighed the yellow-robed priest. So you see, without me, how can you, a mere mortal, smoothly enter the temple amidst such fierce competition? Then, when the time comes, I'll have to trouble Brother Huang for some guidance, as I am very keen to progress, said Su Chi with a light smile. Good, 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 your attitude is finally much better than before, the yellow-robed priest said with satisfaction. Su Chi and Tentacle Man walked on, their eyes calm and steady. A three-surname servant and a habitual embezzler at that, this fellow was a restless fibber, and what was to be learned from him surely needed to be verified with reality. Take it slow. Countless people were heading towards the Rainbow Bridge, seeking to draw nearer to the central location where the god's palace lay. The scene itself was striking, like an army marching in tight formation over a narrow bridge. With each step closer to the central temple group, it felt as if ethereal music was playing by one's ear, making the entire person feel more lucid and refreshed, as if their minds were being vibrated and cleansed. Their devotion to the divine gradually increased, and shame for past sins deepened. Even Tentacle Man was somewhat dazed and even shed tears. I feel now that my previous actions were too outrageous, and I allowed my daughter to suffer terribly for 2 years. That's the previous chapter. Let's not dwell on it anymore. Su Chi also looked at the others, who had all fallen into a state of devotion. This is a bit too much. A collective confession and prayer. The yellow-robed priest coughed. After all, the god's palace needs to collect the power of countless believers' faith. Listening, baptizing, confessing, these methods are all quite useful. Some cried bitterly, while others prayed. Some, trembling, confessed. Forgive me, God. It was one sunset evening when I caught a fish and suddenly had an unusual thought. Fortunately, this confession process did not last very long, and the listening voices gradually faded away. What remained was an intensified fear in people's minds. Under the power of God, they were as transparent as glass and could not hide anything. They continued onward. Rainbow Bridge, so numerous and widely scattered, it was difficult to gauge how many people there were, but such a vast, majestic formation, all leading to one place, demonstrated the grandeur of the ultimate central location. And at the same time, it also meant the many rainbow bridges gradually converged, from a hazy, light-obscured blur until an hour later, one could make out the faces of the people on the nearest rainbow bridge. After walking for an indeterminate amount of time, people finally saw the resplendent gate at the end of the rainbow bridge, and beyond that gate lay the center of the god's temple group. Isn't this path a bit too long? Su Chi muttered to himself. I started to feel bored after just 10 minutes. Su Chi also looked ahead. Ever since they began their walk, the position of the god's temple group and the 9 statues had not shifted, giving no feeling of drawing nearer. The key issue was that the Rainbow Bridge was still slowly forming, leaving no opportunity for those who wished to reach the destination more swiftly. And now, it seemed that the entire temple group was vast and wrapped in an enormous ritual, belonging to a different space altogether, with this so-called gate of splendor serving as one portal into it. This is called the Pilgrimage Path. An audience with the many gods in the temple is a major event for mortals. Haven't you seen how everyone is so serious and reverent, and you're the only one lacking patience? The yellow-robed priest paused. Besides, it serves other purposes. Do you think everything just now was just for the power of faith? It was also to prevent the abyss or evil forces from sneaking in. Su Qi had already stepped through the resplendent gate with everyone else. What met their eyes was the majestic temple group, with its multitude of structures sprawling across the space like a mirage, radiating a grand aura. Su Qi looked on with a bizarre expression. The sanctity, purity, and tranquility before him seemed to be the underlying tone of the god's palace. But, compared to the few divine beings he had encountered, it didn't seem to relate at all. Let's not even talk about the evil god and the master of destruction. Take the most recent yellow-robed master, for example. That obviously was a god directly related to strangeness and horror. How could he possibly have a temple here? It was a completely different style. However, Su Qi didn't immediately expose old Huang, because, at this moment, the ancient bell rang again, and everyone who entered here looked up to the ancient bell set in the sky dome with trembling expressions. It was gently struck by a figure, without even a quiver to its arc. Yet it caused the entire space to vibrate, its sound carrying far and wide. This caused many existences outside the anxious land to feel a slight tremor in their minds and souls. It's come again. It looks like they have already entered the region of the temple group, someone murmured softly. For countless ages, there has actually been someone who could ring that ancient bell. Could that being still be alive? Not sure, came an aged voice, slowly rising. But it's probably impossible. After the last war, it ended with the sequence pathway collapsing. Every being cut off above the severed pathway forever sleeps, sealed, left in that place. Even now, no one has ever reached the last step where the sequence pathway is broken. Sequence 1. At this very moment, countless people stood on the pristine white stone bricks like ants, their gazes trembling as they looked at the towering figure descending from the sky dome. This was the awe-inspiring figure mentioned earlier, the bell ringer who controlled the summoning, with a face devoid of any expression, but eyes shining with extraordinary light. Old Huang. Su Qi began softly, just about to ask a question. Don't talk to me. The yellow-robed priest seemed panicked, his voice trembling. How could this be? How could he still be alive? Question mark. Su Qi said with contempt. Didn't you say you weren't afraid before? Nonsense, I thought that presence just now was a vestige left from the previous Great War, so I could speak out loud without worry, but now it seems… Damn! It's actually him. The yellow-robed priest was frantic. Hide me quickly, or he will surely notice. Yet Su Qi just smiled. Is that so? Don't rush. Let me confirm something first. The yellow-robed priest almost choked. You kid! Is this really the time to confirm something? If I'm gone, you won't be able to get to the Yellow Robes Temple. TCH. Su Qi softly said. Could there be a possibility that you never intended to take me to the yellow-robed master's place? The yellow-robed priest felt guilty, but reasoned with a cough. How could that be? I also need the temple's strength to recover. Even though I'm an honest person, you need to tell me the truth. This place does not seem like where the yellow-robed master would stay. Su Qi said, smiling. Besides, you brought me to the temple, probably also looking to claim resources for your own recovery. How could that be? The yellow-robed priest laughed dryly, then felt his soul fire trembling, the frightful aura causing him to twitch. The bell ringer is about to descend. Can you hide me first? I swear by myself, Huang. Later, I will tell you everything without any concealment. Chapter 262. 9 Layers. Anxious Land. As the yellow-robed priest had said, the bell ringer, as one of the agents of the god's palace, although he wasn't as unreachable as a divine, he possessed the utmost strength just below that of a divine, strength from Sequence 1. His sudden appearance immediately threw the yellow-robed priest into a panic and, after swearing an oath, was hidden away by Su Qi in an item slot. Each square in the item slot is a separate space. In reality, it's as though the Paradise's strength had isolated it, preventing the bell ringer from detecting it. However, Su Qi looked at the bell ringer before him. The agent of the god's palace doesn't seem to be a living person, more like a puppet infused with a strand of spiritual body. Never mind. Old Huang doesn't know. At this moment, the bell ringer hovered in midair, he and the ancient bell of the sky dome occupying the center of the huge altar, his calm and profound eyes slowly taking in everything. Numerous spectators trembled. The bell ringer spoke with calmness. "Too many people. Not seen by the eye of destiny." He gently said, "Too many." That wasn't understood by many. But for the many who had entered this place through unofficial means, their complexions changed. Because they were not chosen by the eye of destiny, they had found back doors to enter this place. It should not contest with those who are chosen, but at this point, there is no other choice. The bell ringer murmured to himself, seemingly sighing while also pacifying. He extended a finger. "Step into anxious land." Immediately, after he spoke, brilliant lights fell from the sky dome, enveloping everyone. And in the next moment, everyone felt their vision warp, the ground below them seeming to collapse, and a fathomless darkness caused many to shudder in fear. But before they could react, they were engulfed by ripples and fell downwards. That quickly, Su Qi hadn't expected this turn of events. Although he didn't have the ability to fly, he could summon the fire dragon. But Su Qi didn't do so. In fact, right now, even if some abnormalities had grown wings, they couldn't fly, as a mysterious force constrained everyone. All they could do was to fall. The specks of light above became smaller and smaller until they gradually faded and vanished. It was as if countless people were swallowed up by the darkness, disappearing without a trace. Su Qi called out for Tentacle Man, but his voice made no sound, and naturally he received no response. All senses were gone. Although conscious, there was no sensation of falling, nor any perception of others around. At this time, even Su Qi's night demon gene was of no use, because this was not darkness. It was an endless expanse of black fog. It felt like falling towards limbo, the hell border, filled with various unsettling and disturbing sensations. Who knows how much time passed? Boom! 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 Now, Su Qi finally heard some muffled sounds, his eyes flickering slightly, the black fog no longer concealing everything. He could feel himself passing through the black fog. The next moment, Su Qi's entire body burst out from the cloud layer of black fog. His eyes moved slightly, and the scene before him entered his sight. So it was a deep and thick layer of black fog. So I was falling vertically. So, there's no parachute. Boom! Without taking any measures, Su Qi was calmly enveloped by the aurora and harshly smacked into the shattered ground. He brushed off his pants and stood up. The aurora had protective measures. Otherwise, an ordinary abnormality falling from such terrifying speed would only meet death. At the same time, Su Qi also noticed his current location was a wide prison. After all, you don't need to look hard to notice the tall fences enclosing everything in a stern state. Su Qi put on the ring. "Old Huang, don't play dead. Say something." The yellow-robed priest. "Is the bell ringer gone?" It looked around, relieved to find no one in sight. "Don't space out, answer my question first. Is this the trial of the god's palace?" Su Qi observed his surroundings. "How did we come to a place with a prison? What kind of world is this?" The yellow-robed priest spoke slowly. "To be precise, it's not a world, but the 9th layer of anxious land." The 9th layer? Su Qi paused slightly because the Paradise system had also presented a mission before him. The player is currently participating in the trial of the god's palace. The player is located in the 9th layer of anxious land. Current main quest. The player must make every effort to proceed to the next layer. Reward. After the 6th layer, points will play a significant role. The yellow-robed priest was also explaining, everyone has now fallen to this layer, but they will appear in different worlds. If you wish to reach the temple and obtain the power of the temple, you have to constantly move downwards. Now it makes sense. Su Qi was pondering on the information mentioned on the Paradise Systems page, feeling somewhat emotional at finally seeing the information about points. But now, one must proceed to the layer after the 6th to find out what it is. Don't get distracted, the yellow-robed priest urged. Pay attention to the movements around. The entrance to the next layer will unlock in due time. You must survive until then. Su Qi also noticed that the prison around him had several closed doors, and there seemed to be breathing sounds coming from within. Is every world genuinely existing? The world should be a facade. After all, it's related to the power of the divine. It adapts to each person's strength, the yellow-robed priest said gravely. But the sinister, peculiar power is real. Why the God's Palace calls it Anxious Land, I believe you shall soon know the answer. Chapter 263. Boom! Even before the iron gate could open, a booming collision sound arose. Su Qi had already drawn out his silvery white hammer, his eyes fixed on one of the iron doors that was slowly opening a crack, as loud growls continued to rise. And when the iron gate opened wide enough to pass through, a horde of vicious prisoners, clad in prison garb with eyes glowing red and weapons in hand, charged forward. Kill! As long as we kill him, we can leave this place. Su Qi was stunned. Oh, there's a plot? He didn't hesitate at all and directly charged at the roaring prisoners. The silvery white hammer thundered out with a heavy smashing sound, and it moved extremely fast. With a sweep of his spiritual energy, it even burst forth with purple lightning. Booming explosively, a mass of prisoners was sent flying in all directions, turning into charred coal as they were flung back. Although numerous, their strength, probably disordered. But I've come to understand a thing or two. Su Qi looked at the dead prisoners without any fear, but rather they roared and rushed at him with red eyes ablaze. They're all lunatics, the yellow-robed priest gently stated. The Anxious Land is a special fragment from the abyss. It constantly evolves, creating all kinds of dangerous life forms. Creating life forms? Su Qi was somewhat surprised. Yes, that's the terror of the Anxious Land's power. The yellow-robed priest lamented. And some mysterious entity has modified it, and it's being suppressed here by the God's Palace. ZZT. Su Qi's eyes faintly lit up with white light, and he shot out intense laser beams. His current attribute was Ray, and this AoE was quite powerful, but it was just too draining on his spiritual energy. He swept around. Spiritual energy directly dropped by 20%. Some attributes weren't well suited for him. After using them, Su Qi decisively switched from continuous to burst mode. The second and third iron gates were also slowly opening, with prisoners bound in heavy armor roaring and charging out even faster. This time, Su Qi could clearly feel that they were all infected with pollution, the power of black fog, and their strength had clearly risen by 1 or 2 levels. You'd better be careful. Based on previous experiences, the creatures that appear will keep getting stronger. Even though you, relying on the divine artifact, killed a 7th rank, the past is the past and now is now. Su Qi surged forward. He was pondering a question. He had entered that hospital before, examining the bodies of 4 divine beings. Why was it that the moment he was about to go downstairs to retrieve medicine, he was suddenly kicked out of the connection? Now it seemed. Retrieving the medicine. Apparently, it was related to the 9 layers of the Anxious Land. He might even encounter the Real, sealed, slumbering patients. As Su Qi rampaged and fought, although many prisoners could unleash powers, with every beat of his ancient god's heart, he could suppress their traits, almost nullifying those of the same sequence, even suppressing those of the 7th rank. Previously dealing with the old monster with a murderous face was purely because the latter was low on intelligence, a pure pollutant, who was deceived and oppressed by simulating the evil god. But if he were to meet a normal 7th rank, it would still have to be settled by actual combat. The 9th layer of the world was not too difficult for Su Chi. In just 20 minutes, corpses lay scattered around him. At that moment, a gust of wind suddenly whipped up. The spot where he had previously landed slowly rose into a point of light, and it kept expanding, eventually turning into a vortex passage. The entrance has appeared, the yellow-robed priest reminded. Su Chi, I see it, but I'm thinking about something. What? I wonder, what would happen if I took someone down with me? Su Chi strode like a meteor, slapping a prisoner who lunged at him until they were completely dazed, then grabbed their neck and headed straight for the vortex passage. In that instant, Su Chi clearly saw the prisoner's flesh bursting apart, but the black blood on their body and the black blood left by all the other prisoners he had just killed, all were falling with the vortex passage. Player has successfully passed through the 9th layer, current location, the 8th layer. As Su Chi passed through the swirling black fog, he didn't fall as before, but after a brief stupor, he opened his eyes slightly, and this time, he found himself in a classroom, nearing evening, the sunset accompanying an unsettling environment releasing signals of unease step by step. The eerie crescent had already quietly appeared above the sky dome. It seemed like the 9th layer was not the same pattern because Su Chi had already seen. Scrawled in blood on the chalkboard ahead were a few large, sloppy characters. Run! Bad! The yellow-robed priest said gravely. Starting from this 8th layer, we will gradually come into contact with more dangerous and bizarre things, some of which cannot be resolved simply through combat and one's own strength. A single misstep could lead directly to a fatal outcome. It feels strangely familiar to me. Su Chi, on the other hand, looked around the place like a seasoned driver, gathered the information, and opened the classroom door. A whiff of paradise. The sense of déjà vu was strong. The mysterious existence that had once drastically transformed this anxious land. It was hard for Su Chi not to suspect it had something to do with paradise. Moreover, this time, there were other people. Su Chi looked toward the classroom. Other doors were also slowly opening, revealing cautious eyes. You are normal people. Finally, we've come across other people. Su Chi watched this scene unfold. They're all participants in the temple's trial. It seemed everyone was unsettled and unfamiliar, exceedingly cautious about everything before them. Since we've all met during this audience trial, it means we're meant to work together, someone said softly. Not necessarily. Su Chi paused. It might be a battle where each of us is fighting in our classroom as a faction, where only the last person standing can escape. Some began to grow tense, while others shook their heads. That's unlikely. I observed that the blackboards in each person's classroom all have the words, "Run" written on them, and I searched a bit and found a piece of paper torn into fragments in a drawer. Although I didn't get to look closely, I saw words like wandering soul and death. That means we have a common enemy. The group was pleased. With the young man's analysis, he had instantly established himself as the brain of the team, commanding and judging. Not necessarily. And Su Chi inappropriately mused again. It's also possible that the wandering soul is hiding among us, quietly corrupting each person's mind, then turning us against each other, with only the survivor. The young man grew impatient. Can your reasoning not be so illogical? Just a casual, rational guess. Su Chi replied, unruffled. The young man sighed in frustration. It's not rational at all. Anyway, let's all go back to our own classrooms and search to see if there are clues like that piece of paper. Everyone nodded eagerly. But Su Chi did not head back to the classroom. Instead, he walked toward a dark stairway. What are you doing? Going to the bathroom. The young man's eyes bulged. The hell you are. Was now really the time for a bathroom break? I can't hold it in. Su Chi waved. You all go search. The young man watched Su Chi disappear up the stairs and sighed. What's he playing at? Nightfall is coming, and danger could strike at any moment. What a headache. The yellow-robed priest was also stunned. What are you doing? Why are you acting alone? This is the 8th layer, and it's even more dangerous. Without sufficient information, the general principle is to cooperate with others. That wandering soul is definitely the enemy of this world, nothing ordinary. Su Buxian, are you even listening to me? I feel like the danger is escalating. Stop it. Su Qi walked into a quiet spot in the dark land, extremely secluded and inconspicuous. He reached out and twisted a doorknob. Night has not yet fallen, and the ultimate enemy has not yet gained great strength, and it's still asleep inside. Su Qi drew a knife. I'm going to check on its sleep quality. Yellow-robed priest? Chapter 264, The Speedrun God. In the cramped, dark room, a twisted wandering soul made up of countless limb fragments, filled with a terrifying chill, was swelling slightly like a ball being inflated in the pitch-black environment, and then slowly shrinking again. The yellow-robed priest watched the scene silently. Though it was merely a spiritual body, its abundant experience allowed it to recognize the state of the wandering soul before it. It is still sleeping, the voice of the yellow-robed priest came, and it looks like it's because it's not yet night that it is currently fairly weak. However, all the black fog from the space above will seep into the lower levels. The lower the level, the thicker the eerie atmosphere, and the greater the lethal danger. It is gradually getting stronger. Night had not yet descended. It was as if a faint black fog was quietly falling, increasing the resentment of the boss before them inch by inch, the temperature around them also slowly dropping, as if penetrating deep into the soul. Congratulations on discovering a blind spot. Su Qi walked forward with a knife in hand. The theme of this world is quite clear. Escape, and you can enter the next level. But, in fact, it's not that simple. Although one can see everything outside the walls of the entire school, it is actually wrapped in eerie forces, blocking any exits to the outer world. By the normal process, people should collect all the clues, try to leave, only to find they're obstructed by the eerie forces and cannot get out, and just then they will be hunted by this twisted undead, continuing to search for clues to break the eerie spell as they flee. But no matter what people do, they can't get around this guy here. Su Qi looked at the twisted undead. Because the real key is on him. On the twisted wandering soul, there were various souls forcibly stuffed inside it, and a string tied to its phantom limbs, which seemed to be connected to something. Night descended eerily upon the entire school. Apart from the softly flickering streetlights, there was no light at all. The entire school was like a monster with a gaping maw ready to devour everyone. The young man was named Fong Li. He got in by a line connection. His background in the present world could only be considered mid-level. It was only by paying a great price, practically putting his entire family on the line, that he managed to secure a spot. He was the family's most promising genius and was also burdened with the heavy hopes of his clan. Chaos is imminent. The weak will surely die. I must carry all hope and continue on. Fong Li was naturally going to give his all. At the moment, he was standing at the school's main gate, his face somber, as everyone looked anxiously at the strange occurrences outside the gate. Why can't we push it open? It seems like something is hindering us here. Let me do it. Let's break it down. Unlike the other bewildered people, Fong Li, who had seen more, said, "Don't act recklessly. It's the power of the supernatural. Blind force won't be able to open it. This is the deadly 8th layer. It won't be so easy. However, judging from all the clues we just collected and the current situation, I've already figured out what this instance is all about." It was then. Footsteps sounded slowly in the darkness. Everyone tensed up, turned around, and saw Su Qi, who had appeared for a moment before. "Are you all here?" Fong Li was surprised. "You're still alive?" Su Qi shook his hand, apparently having just come into contact with some liquid. "I just went to the bathroom. What danger is there?" Fong Li couldn't assess the situation. His keen senses could detect the mortal danger within the school. But this guy in front of him seemed to have genuinely just gone to the lavatory. "Now that you're here, then listen to my summary first. He furrowed his brow heavily and began to speak solemnly. This place was originally a boarding school, but one day a special murderer ghost entered it. Although it was extremely weak during the day, at night it was filled with deadly danger. From that day on, students began to die for no reason, and their deaths were extremely tragic. People even saw black shadows at night, and the entire campus was in panic. Fong Li placed a bunch of newspaper clippings on the ground. The newspapers recorded 3 incidents, and that was when the school realized it might be haunted and called in an Onmyoji from a nearby temple. The Onmyoji wasn't ordinary, sensing the spirit of the evil ghost. Since during the day the probes found only weak strength but did not find the ghost, the Onmyoji wrongly believed that the evil spirit was not to be feared and planned to perform a ritual to kill it when it became active at night. Sadly, they failed. The murderer ghost only needed one night to kill everyone in the school, students, and teachers alike. Fong Li looked towards the gate, and this place was completely taken over by the power of darkness. People showed a hint of fear. Then what should we do now? From the last words left by a few students before they died, we need to split up to find the Onmyoji's notes. He left something to escape from here. According to the previous ritual, it should be Hook Jade, which is highly effective against the present supernatural forces, but both the sensing and the methods of use should be in the notes, Fong Li said gravely. In a short time, he had analyzed and observed the whole picture from the fragmented clues, and found the way to survive quickly. But now someone's face changed drastically. Split up? But isn't it more dangerous to be alone? Fong Li took out a fragment of the Onmyoji's notes, which only recorded a bit of information about the murderer ghost. From what we see now, the Onmyoji's notes must have been torn up into pieces scattered across various places. We must split up to look for them. Otherwise, once the night falls and the murderer ghost's power grows with time, it won't take long before it can annihilate our entire group. Chapter 265. Fong Li calmly said, "So there is no other way. We must race against time. That is the only way to escape from here." The crowd swallowed hard, their mood heavy to the extreme. The terrifying murderous intent spread with the descent of night. That unsettling and lethal atmosphere made everyone sweat profusely, as if sensing that the terror was awaking. This is the temple's trial. The 9th layer alone is enough to engulf most people in a tide of monsters. And the difficulty of the 8th layer is filled with numerous team-wiping dead ends. Don't hesitate anymore. Fong Li clenched his fist, his voice grave. This is anxious land. There is no room for error. Everyone now must, for strength and to pass the trial, immediately start moving. Huh? Fong Li suddenly paused, his gaze turning to Su Qi, who was walking towards the door. What are you doing? That door won't open. The Onmyoji's Hook Jade is needed. You're right. Su Qi took out a rope. The shiny Hook Jade startled everyone, and made Fong Li's eyes widen. What is that? It's a crescent. BS, that's a Hook Jade. Fong Li exclaimed in shock. How did you find it? Just picked it up in the bathroom. Fong Li roared. Why do I find that so hard to believe? This was completely different from his analysis. Something as important as a Hook Jade shouldn't have been so easily obtained. However, Fong Li bit his finger, muttering, now that we have the Hook Jade, we just need to find a way to use it. After all, it's an Onmyoji's item. The Onmyoji's notes are still needed to unleash its power. I can try that. I'm quite familiar with Yin and Yang. You're an Onmyoji too? Sort of. I used to deal with numerous slanderers online who accused me of cheating. That's not what an Onmyoji is. Fong Li almost lost his temper, but Su Qi had already put his hands together, slowly setting the Hook Jade in his palms, his pupils chanting, Yin Yang Jade, flutter with spirit, come forth, reveal the returning soul. The voice, calm and rippleless, yet filled with a strange sensation. At this moment, under the astonished gazes of the crowd, the Hook Jade slowly floated up. Then it released a glowing light. Boom, boom, boom. In the darkness, it suddenly shot out from the palm, violently colliding with the strange force above the door. Fong Li's expression changed. Be careful. This noise will definitely attract the murderer ghost. Everyone, get ready for battle. It won't let us out so easily. Could it be that the deadly peril of this 8th layer world is here? Fong Li had already readied his weapon, gravely stating, "At any rate, make sure to protect him." Everyone prepared themselves, tense faces watching the surrounding darkness. 5 minutes later, Fong Li stared dumbfounded as the door swung open before him, the eerie hindrance dissolving around it, the slight ripples seeming to indicate they could escape. It just opened, and where was the murderer ghost? They had been ready to fight, and saw nothing. Someone murmured, "The 8th layer. Isn't it supposed to be deadly?" Fong Li ignored the voices of doubt from the crowd, his gaze transfixed on the scene before him. "No, it shouldn't be like this. From the clues I gathered, the stories I learned, it shouldn't be like this." He was dumbstruck. At this moment, Su Chi saw the aurora that had enveloped him was flickering. While the others remained dim, Fong Li had a bit too. It seemed that the trial still had its standards, also it was merit-based. That made sense. Su Chi looked at the crowd. "What, you want to stay and read? It's time to leave." The crowd numbly nodded their heads, taking a step out in an instant. Su Chi took one glance. The ripples carried away everyone's silhouettes, disappearing into the darkness. Indeed, the outside world doesn't exist. It's akin to a randomly generated region, possessing a mini version of Paradise Styles. It was really strange. At this moment, Fong Li didn't move. He still couldn't figure it out and muttered towards Su Chi, "What on earth is going on? How did you get those? And why hasn't the murderer ghost appeared again? Can you tell me? I'll call you brother. Real brother. Help me understand. Otherwise, I can't figure it out." Su Chi looked at Fong Li, whose eyes were bloodshot. Was this guy still keen on learning? "I went to the bathroom and found a hook jade, which is reasonable, right? While looking for paper to wipe my hands, I found the Onmyoji's notes, which is reasonable, right? I just happened to encounter a weakened murderer ghost that had just awakened. I killed it with the hook jade, which is reasonable, right? Reasonable." Fong Li's eyes widened as he roared, "Reasonable my ass. What kind of luck is that? And how could the 9th layer be so easy?" It was completely different from what was recorded in the ancient tomes collected by the family before. "It's time to go." But Su Chi looked ahead at the ripples and said, "I think though everyone's entry and exit times aren't consistent, it's very likely they adjust these during transportation. But who knows how long the ripple portal will last. I'm going ahead." Su Chi slowly disappeared into the ripples. Fong Li clenched his teeth. He really wanted to go back to school to check, believing that if he could find a trace, he could uncover the truth. But seeing Su Chi move forward, he hesitated for a moment and followed after him. At this moment, the ripples were taking Su Chi in, but this time it took longer. It finally ended. Su Chi muttered to himself. This time was quite a challenge. The yellow-robed priest almost choked and said, "Are you even speaking human language? You only saw me quickly solve the source but failed to notice that there are lethal dangers everywhere. Didn't you notice at all? What use are you?" The yellow-robed priest. "How can I just not believe it? Let's not talk about information for now, after all. Those are all from my brain rapidly analyzing," Su Chi said calmly. "But the most important thing is, the murderer ghost knew it was weak before entering nighttime, so it did everything possible to hide itself, setting up various defenses and deadly powers on its hiding path. And there was also something wrong with the doorknobs in the hidden room. Thankfully, I was lucky. Using the artificial team's counterattack, it successfully caused it to malfunction. It's just that when I killed it, I didn't handle it well." Su Chi paused. "I didn't think it would absorb so many corpses for being just a ghost. And it could even squirt water to attack, almost splashing me all over." The yellow-robed priest. "Wasn't that just corpse water sprayed by your hammering? Damn. Allowing this mortal to act all high and mighty in front of him. Stay focused. The 7th layer is coming," the yellow-robed priest said gravely. "Next It's the main event. He hadn't finished speaking when Su Chi was swept into the ripples. This time, Su Chi's consciousness briefly blanked out, and his body's aurora flashed brighter than before. He felt as if he was navigating through a nightmare, distinctly sensing a strong unease approaching from all directions. Some were whispering, others were watching. But more than anything, there was a sensation of falling. Indeed, the further down, the more intense this feeling became. Who knows how much time had passed? Su Chi regained his senses. Without even opening his eyes, he could feel everything slightly swaying beneath him. He smelled the moist, fishy scent of the sea at the tip of his nose. Also, he heard the sound of the waves. I'm at the 7th layer now, but it seems like I'm on a ship. Su Chi slowly opened his eyes. At this moment, he was lying in a room, which looked old and as if it hadn't been cleaned for a long, long time. There was dust everywhere, and the wood was rotten and decrepit. And also, Su Chi picked up the navigation journal on the table. This ship seems quite special. It needs at least 50 people to operate it to be able to sail. But now, the ship was as silent as a ghost with only him on board. Is this the price for speed running? Chapter 266 Captain Jack Su. Su Chi walked onto the deck. This ship was huge but also in a terrible state of disrepair, its tattered flags blending spottily with the dark hull. And the sea around them seemed as dark as the sky, the surging waves continually slamming against the ship's body. According to the ship's navigation log, this sea harbors all sorts of terrifying sea monsters, ghost ships, and demonic maritime disasters. In short, any bizarre event could happen. Su Chi said softly, and the compass on the ship will point us in a safe direction. So, the task is simple. Just steer the ship in the direction indicated. Simple my ass. Can you not sound so relaxed? The yellow-robed priest grumbled. This broken ship needs 50 people to get moving. And this is the 7th layer. It's clear that more terrible dangers are coming. If the ship can't sail, we might end up trapped here, buried at sea. It and Su Chi were in the same boat, so it couldn't help worrying. And it was puzzled, under normal circumstances, it should appear here with other trial participants to start the first step. Not stuck in a dead-end situation like now. Could it be because they cleared the last instance too quickly? Or was there a mistake in the process? Indeed, it's a bit troublesome, but it's not a big problem. Su Chi paused. Gone once away. The next moment, black shadows slowly emerged in front of him. The yellow-robed priest was slightly stunned. Seeing these 3 black shadows for the first time, this guy also had such methods, but it didn't feel any familiar aura from them. Because at this moment, all 3 figures were filled with intense darkness. Sect Hierarch, please instruct. Gon Wonsue opened his mouth hoarsely, seemingly still unaccustomed to speaking, his voice faltering and awkward. How is the training going? About 70 black shadows have reached the level of simply following orders. Okay, bring them all out. Here are the navigation requirements. You guys teach them. Su Chi wrote down all various distribution and operational requirements of the still navigable ship on a piece of paper. Understood. The next moment, the yellow-robed priest dumbfoundedly watched as a great number of black shadows, like plankton, slowly appeared on the ship from Su Chi's shadow. Although they had human-like forms of black shadows, each one looked somewhat dazed. What in the world is this? My special ability, that's all. Su Chi's face was pale. It consumes a bit much. The yellow-robed priest didn't doubt him, having seen Su Chi's dark shadows before. Besides, special abilities were inherently strange and varied. But it seems, these shadows are all very weak, just like ordinary people. For now, this will suffice. Su Chi handed the matters over to Gon Wonsue. Those pollution monsters he had killed earlier in the city center. He had used the darkness, a tribute to devour a large number of shadows, which, as described, were like a filthy pollution pond that didn't disappear. Gon Wonsue had found this pool of pollution outside the Room of Nightmares. able to absorb its unique dark power, thus undergoing some subtle changes. Not only could it speak, but the traces of the evil god were also suppressed. Meanwhile, Su Qi also discovered that they could extract the dark power swallowed from inside the pollution pond, allowing the formation of a new independent existence. Black shadows. Of course, the failure rate was high, and their strength was weak. Most shadows initially were just a mass of chaos. Undergone Onsue's cultivation, they gradually took human shape, and now only barely 70 black shadows had been trained. Their strength was currently that of ordinary people, and they could only simply understand commands, unable to act autonomously. For now, Su Qi wasn't planning to recruit more. The more people there are, the more time and energy it would take to train them. He would consider subsequent steps only after cultivating these 70 black shadows into elite Black Shadow Corps. However, several black shadows suddenly plopped down, falling flat on the deck. Some black shadows walked into walls. Others had blank looks in their eyes. ABA, ABA, ABA. Right now, all these stupid black shadows, turning them into an elite corps seems a long way off. Fortunately, I have 3 instructors I've trained myself. Undergone Onsue's motherly and fatherly arrangements and commands, 2 to 3 hours passed by quickly. But this investment of time was worth it. Each black shadow successfully found their own place, and although the ship was huge and composed of all sorts of intricate machinery, operating it was as simple as an assembly line. Even with the clumsy manipulations of the black shadows, the ship finally began to sail. The steering was left to Gon Onesue. For a moment, the previously silent and deserted broken ship now buzzed with activity. I've just decided something very important. Hearing Su Qi's extremely serious tone, the yellow-robed priest slightly focused. It hadn't seen such an expression on this guy before. You decided what? I've decided to name this ship the Black Pearl, and I am the captain, Su Jack Sparrow. Damn it! The yellow-robed priest roared. How is that an important matter? And when the hell did you change clothes? At this moment, Su Qi was already sporting a pirate hat adorned with a skull pattern, his right hand turning into an iron hook, clad in a black, flowing long coat that danced with the sea breeze, his one foot resting high on the mast. Chapter 267. A hand was already gripping the long knife and pointed forward. Now all Black Shadow Corps, follow my command. Sail in the direction of 9 o'clock. Yes, Captain Su Jack Sparrow, Gon Onesue shouted solemnly. They were already very accustomed to it. Yellow-robed priest. It did not understand. It was greatly shocked. The rolling waves were still thunderously crashing against the hull, and countless dark clouds gathered above the ghastly sky dome, though nothing had erupted yet, but the oppressive sensation of an impending storm was already ominously palpable. At this very moment, in the vast and boundless ocean, there were numerous abandoned or lost ships drifting, and a large number of people who had fallen from the 8th level were sent to different ships via ripples. Most were disoriented and hazy until they found related clues on the ship and finally began to organize, then took action. Apart from the 50 people controlling the sailing of the ship, there were others responsible for fending off the terrifying monsters. Kill! Don't let them aboard! Fong Li roared. He suddenly swung his sword, and a cold gleam penetrated the sharp-toothed sea demon covered in tentacles. At this very moment, he truly felt the horrific threat of the 7th level. These monsters, as if starved, had an intense craving for the flesh and blood of the living, attacking suddenly and unpredictably, with each possessing extremely troublesome and lethal destructive power. Damn! The sliced sharp-toothed sea demon sprayed mucus all over Fong Li, and his expression slightly changed. Is my body going numb? Does this mucus contain paralytic toxins? However, it wasn't fatal. His body was also stuffed with various family resources, and he just needed to catch his breath to take a detoxification potion. But at that moment, whoosh! A series of swift whooshing sounds suddenly came, as rotting skin murderous mermaids viciously sped over the waves toward Fong Li's back. Fong Li gritted his teeth, attempting to dodge, but his legs wouldn't respond, his eyebrows slightly knitted, prepared to use his last resort. "Be careful," a composed and calm voice sounded. A young man decisively, without any hesitation, fiercely stabbed the murderous mermaid. "Thank you." Fong Li, now gasping for air, sat down on the ground, took out a potion, drank it, and finally recovered. "No need to thank me, even if you didn't need me just now. You must have been ready with a countermeasure, right?" The young man said lightly with a smile. "I'll cover you first to let you recover." As a large number of monsters attacked, this young man demonstrated his strength, which set him apart from the others. Fong Li was moved. Finally, he met a capable and rational normal person. After eliminating the paralytic state, Fong Li also immediately joined the combat team. After a fierce slaughter, this ship finally sailed out of the dangerous waters, and the nearby monsters no longer swarmed in such dense numbers. "From what we see now, it's temporarily calm." The young man observed the sky dome and waves. "Indeed." Fong Li extended his hand. "I'm Fong Li. Thanks for your help just now." He increasingly recognized that to continue on, he must connect with exceptional people, and since the young man had just saved him and gave him time to recover, he indeed seemed like a very decent person. "My name is Brother Yi." The young man also grinned. "Don't be too formal. It's just a helping hand." They entered a calm sailing period now. The two also struck up a conversation. "So, you're also a second generation? All burdened with high expectations?" "I see." One was from a family's second generation, the other from Paradise's second generation. Whether it was temperament or mutual understanding, they matched very well. The more they talked, the more they felt like kindred spirits, and they instantly agreed to cooperate closely from then on. "Brother Yi, that was truly touching," Fong Li remarked, his voice tinged with emotion. "I am weak and alone, so coming across someone like-minded is not easy." Brother Yi chuckled. "Why speak so bitterly? But I can understand. After all, many acquaintances of mine have become enemies." What he referred to was the elimination rounds of the competition. He was a social butterfly. Even as an ordinary person, he had connections with many, including Yun Zhantian and others from various clubs, even contacts in Paradise. After all, given his background, his own strength had improved and he was gradually manifesting a remarkable charisma. However, clearly, Fong Li understood it more cruelly. Slightly moved, he said, "It seems, Brother Yi, you've also had a tough time. Turning against each other is not something everyone can bear." Brother Yi laughed loudly. "I haven't faced deep friendships yet, so turning acquaintances into enemies over benefits is normal. But," he muttered to himself, "I wonder if that guy has come to Anxious Land." "Is that guy a close friend of yours?" asked Fong Li, curious. "Somewhat." Brother Yi paused. "Though his personality is abnormal, he is very capable and has potential, but I'm not sure if he will come here." To be honest, he felt the likelihood was quite low. Their division had gone mad, with all the major clubs' main forces here, and the resources and intensity poured in had far exceeded estimates. And Su Buxian's hundreds of millions of points, Brother Yi believed, would be difficult to keep. Fong Li didn't hold back either, and shared everything he had encountered along the way. "The last instance ended in such a muddled way. That guy, I don't know how he did it and he wouldn't tell," sighed Fong Li. "It still feels bad in my heart. If I meet him again, I must ask him clearly." The two had talked only a few sentences. Suddenly, the sky dome turned ominously dark, and bursts of cold sea breeze carrying a bloody scent started to blow, chilling everyone on the vast ship's deck. But the waves did not become turbulent. Instead, they quieted down. In the dark, haunting sea, an unsettling, eerie aura was spreading. "Everyone, be alert and watch your surroundings to prevent any dangerous situations." Other ability users on the ship were calmly warning. The surroundings grew darker and darker. Brother Yi and Fong Li looked around with grave expressions. "This feels completely different from before." They couldn't even hear the raging sound of the waves anymore. Although the ship was moving in the indicated direction, it seemed as if they were approaching death and horror. "Look ahead!" someone suddenly exclaimed. "There are other ships." Ships with people began appearing one after the other in front. It seemed everyone was moving toward the indicated direction together. However, the speed had noticeably slowed down, a reason they would soon understand. In front, the dark, exposed massive island formed dense, hazy silhouettes. Fong Li urgently warned, "Are those reefs? And there's fog too. Be careful. Follow the 5 ships in front." "No good. The helm seems stuck." The helmsman's faces changed slightly. "The currents are not fast. But we can't change course." "What's going on?" "There's a strange force pulling the ship, and it seems the same is happening to those in front." Deeper the ship went. The creepy, terrifying aura brought a chill, making everyone unconsciously shiver. They carefully slowed down, weaving and navigating through the sea path among the islands. Everything around them was dark and shadowy, the dense fog making it difficult to discern the huge silhouettes nearby. Brother Yi looked around with a solemn expression. "Look, there are quite a few ships also approaching this direction. They seem to have fallen into the same force." Many ships were converging in this area, seemingly all heading in the directed path. Everyone on board looked grave and uneasy, watching their surroundings. So tall, so huge. Brother Yi observed the dense silhouettes. Not sure if it was his imagination, but the bloody scent of the wind seemed to be getting stronger. And it seemed that the sea breeze was coming from these silhouettes. "Wait, something's not right, folks." Brother Yi suddenly broke into a sweat. For one of the giant island silhouettes slowly opened its eyes, and at the same time, other surrounding silhouettes also emitted a kind of murmuring shriek. Everyone's expressions drastically changed, faces turning pale, looking at those terrifying silhouettes of demons, almost scared to death. These are not islands at all. They're giant monsters. This place is very dangerous. Extremely dangerous. Chapter 268. Acquaintance. The waves were eerily calm without any ripples. Yet they drew every ship deeper, emitting a bizarre and terrifying aura that made everyone shiver. At this moment, everyone realized that the trace of blood-scented sea breeze at their nostrils was not an illusion but the flesh and blood being chewed by these terrifying monsters. The sound of bones crushing sent chills down their spines. Why are there so many terrifying monsters here? Damn it! Can we run? The ship won't move. What in the world is going on? At that time, a melodious singing voice was slowly rising in front, and the fog gradually dissipated under the sway of the song. Everyone looked ahead with doubtful eyes. Amongst countless monsters, there sat a mermaid covered in scales, her body swaying as she sang. Her beauty shimmered like crystal-clear water dazzling with light, accompanied by that intoxicating song. At this moment, many were as if spellbound, standing stupefied, their eyes flashing with a strange light as they stared at the mermaid. It was as if they were in an extremely cold snowy field. And the mermaid's song was the last warmth, embracing each one of them, trapping everyone in a mesmerized state, unable to extricate themselves. It's not right. Definitely not right. Wake up, all of you. Many spiritually aware individuals roared, the burst of spiritual energy making everyone shudder. Boo! Night Guard also fiercely bit his tongue at that moment, the intense pain snapping him out of the intoxicating stupor. His eyelids twitched violently. That was no beautiful mermaid. Her body was entirely rotten, bloated, her face a bloody blur with remnants of limbs and flesh in her mouth. The song heard was a grating, screeching, unintelligible eerie chant. The real danger isn't the monsters around us. It's that sinister mermaid, Fong Li growled. It's the most terrifying entity. Although the sinister mermaid appeared small compared to the monsters around her, on closer inspection, one would realize that all nearby phantoms were actually from deep-sea creatures. The huge deep-sea creatures seemed to be circling the other, influenced by the song as if controlled. It has summoned these monsters from the depths of the sea. Sinister power. It has submerged a vast range of sea into its domain. We must take action. Stop it. Many people burst forth in full force, launching a ferocious attack towards the center where the sinister mermaid was. However, the next instant, the sinister mermaid's voice turned piercingly shrill. The deep-sea creatures around immediately moved to shield her. Boom, boom, boom. Despite the deep-sea creatures' massive size and being fleshly bodies, their bodies were perforated with blood holes. Though these were not fatal, they seemed to have infuriated them. Their eyes blood-red as they roared. The surrounding waves stirred. The other phantom monsters also seemed ready to spring into action. Everyone's faces turned pale, and the sinister mermaid's song became even shriller, louder, causing everyone's eardrums to ache. We can't wait any longer. Only by taking down that mermaid can we survive. Kill! Many roared and leaped forward, stepping on the bodies of huge deep-sea monsters, flying towards her. Although massive, the deep-sea creatures were clumsy and not agile, and seemingly under the control of the mermaid's song. Many could not act on their own, meaning only a few were controlled by the sinister mermaid. There's a chance. Night Guard and Fong Li said solemnly. Let's go too. The seventh layer of the world. Although there were more people, the same. The land was riddled with terrible dangers, and catastrophic group annihilations were far more common than on the previous level. One misstep could lead to being wiped out here. Every person on these dozen ships had to fight with all their might. But the sinister mermaid was horrifyingly laughing, its song increasingly disturbing, creating massive rippling waves from its center. At the same time, the sea demons that had previously ambushed the ships emerged. They were densely packed, making one's skin crawl, each one staring intently at the people. So, those sea demons were all its minions, and it has been watching us all along, wanting to ensnare us all. Quite the appetite. Kill! The people burst into fierce combat, clashing violently with the many rushing sea demons. Their target was the singing sinister mermaid. Everyone could see that they were deep within the sinister power's domain, and the mermaid was the core of it all. But in reality, getting close to her was not so easy. The deep-sea creatures roared, stirring the crowd and the waves. Everyone had to be careful to dodge, otherwise, they would be harshly slammed into the sea, to be devoured cleanly by numerous cannibal sharks below. And the sea demons, with blood-red eyes and swarming without a concept of life or death, relentlessly blocked their path with intense killing intent. Most importantly, the closer they got to the sinister mermaid, the more ear-piercing her song became. Their bodies would be affected, feeling an illusory-like immense pressure and resistance, uncontrollably trembling. We'll cover others. Leave the assault to us. A group of people charged ferociously, including Night Guard and Fong Li. This group was incredibly fast, their expressions unusually calm. They were among the strongest and most well-backed in the crowd of these dozen ships. Chapter 269. After all, there were too many people chosen. Even in this world, that was just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the number of people granted an audience. Brother Yi and Fong Li were a team. You take the left. I'll take the right. Okay. Both men were calm and collected, like a bow and arrow as they sliced through any sea demons that tried to block their way along the route. The terrifying strength of more than 10 people burst forth, continuously leaping forward, almost reaching the eerie fishmen. Many sea demons desperately climbed and jumped up trying to stop them, but Brother Yi clenched his fist and roared loudly. Get out of the way! A terrifying blast of air erupted, completely crushing the sea demons in front, stripping them away like dust. Fong Li was startled. Such incredible ability, but he also noticed Brother Ye's face turn pale. Obviously, the move was tremendously powerful but also extremely draining. Brother Yi, don't worry. Leave the rest to us. Fong Li roared, and he along with the others threw themselves into a fierce battle. The eerie mermaid noticed their killing intent and suddenly burst into a terrifying scream. The horrifying ripple fluctuations made them feel cold all over, their bodies trembling, as if plunging into the deep sea. The surrounding monsters also started howling, as if about to riot. It's useless. At this moment Fong Li's eyes sparkled. His aura suddenly changed, and he sliced open his palm. He grasped the blade in his hand. The blood on it looked as if it could ignite, carrying an astonishing breath, as though generating a shadow of sword energy. With an overwhelming force, he violently stabbed towards the eerie fishman. The next moment, the eerie fishman was pierced amidst a thunderous, fearful roar. His cry made everyone, including the sea demons and deep-sea monsters, cover their ears. Fong Li clenched his teeth tightly. His eyes were bloodshot as he tried to pull out the blade, but the rotting hand of the eerie fishman grabbed hold of the sword blade. Its singing abruptly stopped, but it hoarsely uttered, "You have stepped into this devil's sea. None of you will escape. They will soon find you, eat your flesh, drink your blood, gnaw your bones, and avenge me. Ah ha ha ha." It screamed, its entire body wildly spewing black fog outwards. It seemed that was the source of the eerie power. As the black fog dissipated, the eerie fishman also turned into a skeletal figure and sank into the water. The other deep-sea monsters seemed somewhat fearful and dived down, while many sea demons, with their red eyes staring intently, did not attack again but slowly retreated. Everyone looked solemnly at this scene. Although they had successfully killed such an eerie mermaid, their mood had sunk to the lowest. Were there other creatures of the same kind? The waves are moving again. The ship can continue forward now. At this moment, all those holding the ship's navigation logs suddenly felt a mild warmth in their chest. They quickly pulled out the notebook that detailed the ship's travel knowledge from their pockets. Wait, is there new content? Brother Yi and Fong Li returned to the deck at this moment, their expressions slightly stunned. What new content? It says, this devil's sea houses 9 terrifying eerie creatures. Each of them rules over their respective territory. And that mermaid was the weakest among them. Everyone shivered involuntarily. Such dangerous and deadly beings, and there were still 8 more. And the most terrifying being is named Sea Demon. If it appears, it's a certain death. From what just happened, someone said grimly. It has already sent a signal, and the other 8 might find us soon, as it said. We can't delay. All ships, all people, act immediately. Head in the direction of the compass now. Everyone frantically began to speed up. They switched shifts in 2 rounds, determined to leave before the other 8 terrifying creatures arrived. Meanwhile, in another sea territory, the yellow-robed priest's voice trembled. Don't move recklessly. I haven't moved. Why are you so nervous? Are you blind? Can't you see that giant thing above your head? Above the Black Pearl, 5 enormous tentacles propped up against the sky dome, with a bizarrely unsettling black hole in the center. How can such a thing exist here? The yellow-robed priest said anxiously. It just needs to move a bit, and we would all be buried at the bottom of the sea. Su Qi glanced at the compass. Can only say its pointing isn't very accurate. Damn! The yellow-robed priest glared at him and shouted. This is all because of you. When that giant current appeared, we could have gone around it, but you insisted on going straight through. It's not hiding itself anymore. Its voice almost projected outward. It's not that the black shadows are too slow, I just sped up a bit, Su Qi said nonchalantly. Look, when the ship flew, it obviously jumped a great distance. So we ran into such a terrifying creature. The yellow-robed priest roared. And you lot, didn't you think to advise him at all? Gan Wansue said forcefully. The captain's orders are absolute. Su Qi, like a leader, clapped his hands and nodded in satisfaction. Very good. You guys are promising. Come to my office later. I'll consider giving you a raise. Thank you, Sect Hierarch, Gan Wansue said energetically. Call me Captain. Yes, Captain. The yellow-robed priest watched this scene, fell into silence as if he had been struck hard. The last flicker of his soul fire trembled weakly. Then he muttered despondently, "I was wrong, all wrong. Knowing this, it would have been better to just die in that pit." And Su Chi lifted his head, looking at the terrifying creature in the sky dome. When he had first encountered the giant current, his initial instinct was to go around too. But an exclamation mark had appeared. Riding the current, you might encounter a familiar entity. At that time, Su Chi was surprised. Familiar faces in this eerie devil's sea? After thinking hard and not knowing who it might be, he decided to ride the current and find out. Now, the situation had turned into this. Su Chi slowly took out his similarly heated navigation diary. Sea demon, huh? He recognized at a glance the high-reaching life with 5 tentacles as none other than Hai Xing. Hai Xing, who was once his teammate in Love, Death Superplayers. At this moment, Hai Xing's terrifying mouthparts, like a black hole, were furiously sucking in the waves. The recent current was due to this terrifying suction force. Now, the black shadows were all desperately exerting force in the opposite direction, so as not to be sucked away. Su Chi whispered softly, Brother Hai Xing, I thought you and Brother Cat had gone off to wander different worlds. How did you end up here?" And became the most fearsome sea demon of the Devil's Sea. He could see that Brother Hai Xing was in a dangerous state. Question marks filled with pain, struggle, and madness flickered above his head. Su Chi reached out again, a philosophy book materializing in his hand. Being and nothingness? The yellow-robed priest was confused. "You're reading a book at a time like this. Knowledge is power." Su Chi opened the book, unconcerned about the yellow-robed priest seeing it. It was powered by the knowledge god, which, besides the book's cover, he couldn't comprehend anything. This book contained countless rituals held by the god of knowledge, although not all were displayed the moment it was opened. The divine itself transcends everything, with rituals spanning ancient to modern. Thus, Su Chi needed to make his request to display relevant rituals. At the same time, he also needed to provide corresponding spirit coins. "I need to restore its sanity temporarily. The current rituals capable of achieving this," Su Chi muttered to himself. Of course, at present, many ancient, taboo, and legendary rituals required more powerful officiants and vast resources, so typically one needed to accurately articulate their requests. At that moment, the display showed, the ritual's level is ancient, requires 50,000 spirit coins for display. Su Chi, you're charging a copyright fee now? Chapter 270. How can the chosen of the Eye of Destiny be insignificant? Su Chi wasn't surprised either. The brother Hai Xing before him had become even stronger and more terrifying. "I'll definitely have to get Brother Hai Xing to give it back later." Su Chi threw in 50,000 spirit coins, although he hadn't received the payment from the Hustler's Chamber of Commerce yet. The rebate he got from the final home was nearly 100,000 spirit coins, all thanks to the efforts of his brothers. After the spirit coins dissipated, the text on a page of the book, like 3D, was fluttering off page by page. Dark traces were forming a complex pattern. At the same time, related text was slowly appearing. Holy Whisper ceremony requires the use of rootless water to construct the pattern, and placing the following items at different positions in the pattern. Soaked feather, half a spirit coin, rotten fish roe. Su Chi's eyelid twitched slightly as he looked at the dense list of requirements. There were quite a few items needed. Finally, recite these words to activate the ceremony. Su Chi looked at the heap of awkward, complex, obscure ceremonial language. It seems the ceremony is really troublesome and also damn expensive, but this isn't just a one-off deal. As long as I remember the pattern and the ceremonial words and so on, it would be like buying them outright. Simple ceremonies just required memorization. But complex, forbidden ceremonies had a threshold of forgetting. In short, they required the use of spiritual energy and spiritual power to gradually comprehend, to slowly engrave them into one's mind. This wasn't a problem for Su Chi. The main issue is that the items needed for the ceremony are a hassle to find, and I don't know if I can just get by with a concrete in the future. Concrete illusions can be created within the pupil, based on the difference in spiritual power between the two parties. The target's degree of belief, environmental mimicry, logical coherence, etc., can become concrete and produce attributes and powers. Currently, I could only construct them for a short duration, couldn't make items that exist for a long time out of thin air. At that moment, the surrounding waves suddenly lifted a huge swell, and the sky dome began to blow with a hurricane. Gon Wansue hurriedly shouted, "Captain, it's moving!" Brother Hai Xing's massive, abnormal body was shifting. It seemed slow, but it was actually moving thousands of meters in one step, and with it, a huge current burst forth. The yellow-robed priest looked slightly pleased. "See that? It looks like it's leaving. This is a good opportunity to get away from it. Turn the helm quickly." "Gon Wansue, who the hell are you?" They all looked toward Su Chi silently. "Full speed ahead. Keep following with the current." Su Chi gestured grandly. "Yes, Captain." "Damn!" The yellow-robed priest cursed loudly. "Damn it! Be a normal person. In all my years in this world, this is the first time I've seen someone deliberately go down such a dangerous path. Even if you don't consider yourself, think of me for once. I'm getting on in years too." Su Chi smiled and bent down, using the method required by the ceremony with the feather soaked to make a simple pen. The rainwater from the sky dome also fell from the clouds heavy with black fog. "Stay calm. Its direction is consistent with the compass needle. Since we're heading there, of course we should hitch a free ride." He held the feather pen and began constructing the ceremonial pattern on the deck. Each stroke was imbued with spiritual energy and wouldn't be washed away by seawater. However, he still had to pay attention to the gentle rhythm without disturbing the sequence. Otherwise, the spiritual energy would disperse and spell failure. The yellow-robed priest watched Su Chi's actions, his heart skipping a beat. He sensed the subtle spiritual energy within and said in surprise, "Are you constructing a ceremony? Why so surprised?" Su Chi did two things at once. "Bullshit," the yellow-robed priest said. "You were clearly asking me about ceremonial matters before, looking like a complete newbie. Now you're already hands-on. This must be the ceremony you got from that tentacle monster, right?" "Close enough. I plan to use it on the sea demon to lower its sand value and purge the pollution in its spirit." The yellow-robed priest looked toward Su Chi solemnly. "You're daydreaming in broad daylight. I've already said that those ceremonies in the final home are trash. At most they can only be effective on low-sequence ordinary people. How could it be effective on this creature? Moreover," the yellow-robed priest sighed, "do you know why I said that tentacle man had potential? It's because the arrangement of a ceremony requires a very high talent along with a high threshold for entry." He said earnestly, "Many people can't even control the finesse of their spiritual energy. And you, a newcomer, even if you mimic others, creating the pattern will just make it collapse like a program." He suddenly stopped speaking and his eyes widened as he watched Su Chi's actions. Su Chi carved the pattern swiftly, each stroke of spiritual energy subtly persistent, maintaining balance with the prior one. "It seems different from what you said. Not that hard." "You!" The yellow-robed priest was lost for words, slightly surprised at Su Chi's proficiency. Damn, this guy must have practiced. Mortal. He watched as Su Chi exhaled lightly, calmly saying, "Of course, it's not difficult. After all, it's just a first-order ceremony. Many newcomers can achieve this level." Ceremonial patterns were categorized by order, analogous to a Rubik's Cube. The higher the order of the cube, the higher its complexity and the more difficult it is to construct. The higher the order, the more advanced the ceremony, and the requirements for changes in spiritual energy and the mental commitment needed were terrifying. Su Chi still casually gave a thumbs up. "Brother Huang, you've seen big scenes? It's just me, Su Chi, being conceited." Chapter 271. How does it feel like this guy is fooling himself? It's not the first time we've met. He had gained quite some understanding of this guy. He would not admit his mistakes, nor would he change his undisciplined ways and bad behavior, still doing whatever he pleases. Boom! The sea demon moved extremely fast, swirling the currents that had carried the Black Pearl an unknown distance. The yellow-robed priest looked around the surrounding sea area. Something's wrong. There's a strong scent of blood. Bodies and broken planks are floating on the sea. There was a battle here before. It seems to be other ships. Su Qi's movements became even more fluid. He seemed to have an exceptional control over various intricate matters. This ancient ritual, although he had reached the 6th rank, various traces still appeared in his vision. And thus, he still had time to observe the surrounding sea. Other ships have come together to kill one of the 9 demons, and the direction of the compass clearly points to the same place. That must be the entrance to the 6th layer. However, the other 8 demons seem to be heading towards the many ships. This momentum certainly isn't for a friendly visit. Su Qi withdrew his gaze. It should be almost finished. At this very moment, the crowds on the many ships were still heading in the direction indicated by the compass. Since everyone had gathered together, the progress was quite smooth. Fong Li softly said, "It seems that only we exist in this part of the world now. If other ships haven't arrived by now, they must have sunk to the bottom of the sea. And now, the destination indicated by the compass should also be the entrance to the 6th layer." Fong Li looked at the compass. He came to the same conclusion as Su Qi. Yishou nodded. "We should be getting close now. The clouds and currents around us are clearly converging towards that central location. I just hope those 8 terrifying creatures don't arrive too soon." Unfortunately, Yishou cursed his own bad luck. Someone exclaimed, "There's something in the distance." Everyone looked over, and Yishou's expression changed slightly. Amidst flashes of lightning, several vague silhouettes appeared behind them. Some demons wore doll masks with deep red graffiti like fresh blood. Some stood on rafts, their hands dragging chains attached to corpses. And there was a massive creature, like a large ship, spewing sea demons. Waves of terrifying aura and eerie scenes made everyone's scalp tingle. "Increase the speed. Run!" They gritted their teeth and frantically increased their speed. They knew they would be chased down, but didn't expect it to be so quick. Wait. There seemed to be only 7 figures. Fong Li focused and said, "The most terrifying sea demon hasn't appeared yet?" He had read the descriptions in the voyage diary. The other demons were briefly mentioned, but only the sea demon was emphasized, resembling a pyramid's pinnacle. If it hasn't appeared yet, the danger of the sea demon is even greater. Yishou, drawing from his experience in paradise, said, "Since this is a trial from the temple, there should be a pattern to it. After all, the big boss would appear last, otherwise it would mean instant annihilation. Anyway, run with all your might." Over 10 ships hurriedly sped up, the 50 people controlling the ship wishing they could work miracles. And those terrifying creatures coldly watched them, deep-sea monsters carrying them closer. The next moment, the 7 demons unleashed their mystifying powers. Countless sea creatures roared below. A large number of sea demons swarmed across the sea surface. Damn! This number, it's dozens of times more than before. Being surrounded and delayed means only a dead end. Quickly. Faster. Fortunately, as Yishou had said, they weren't far from the endpoint indicated by the compass. In the distance, a terrifying black whirlpool formed a massive wave connecting to the sky dome. Like a dragon sucking water, but insanely turbulent. Hurricane-force winds, towering waves, and incredible destructive power seemed to devour everything. The lightning and thunder further bombarded everyone's ears. Everyone looked ahead with trembling eyes. Is this the entrance to the 6th layer? Are you sure we won't die? Damn it! It's better than dying at the hands of those monsters behind us. Charge! Each ship strained every muscle to furiously cut through the rising waves. And the 7 demonic creatures, with cold gazes, watched this scene. A muffled voice filtering through the doll masks. Thinking of escaping. No one can escape from the Devil's Sea. Everyone will stay here, with us. Savoring the curse. Make a move? That terrifying guy hasn't arrived yet. The person speaking had conflicting emotions in his eyes, and with apprehension as well as some mockery. I'm afraid it's been distracted by something else. Don't worry about it. Let's go. Shoo, shoo, shoo. Countless chains burst out from a sinister creature, dragging more than 10 boats in their grip. All the boats felt a huge jolt. The speed also slowed down a lot. Damn it! Nightwatch looked back. Every chain was grasped and pulled by numerous sea demons, and deep-sea monsters roared as they bore the chains. Destroy them immediately! Everyone quickly exhausted their strength to dismantle the chains. But this lightning-fast delay had already cost them dearly. A multitude of sea demons approached the boats and surged onto the decks. They were like wild beasts, their eyes blood-red as they screamed and pounced. Fight! Battle! Numerous people unleashed their strength. Waves crashed fiercely. There's a chance. We're getting close. The entrance to the 6th layer is right in front of us. But the 7 sinister creatures weren't so simple. Black fog circulated within their bodies, the power of pollution seeming to crawl out of them. I'm saying, stop! A doll-headed sinister creature growled lowly. The other sinister creatures also emitted the same hoarse, cold sounds. Stop! Stop! Their powers suddenly converged, ripples emanating from them. In an instant, all the boats felt a huge resistance. Fong Li's eyes showed alarm. The boat isn't moving. This is the power of that sinister mermaid from before. Nightwatch's expression changed slightly. They have the same abilities. Just like the previous sinister mermaid, they seem to be trapped in a sinister domain. What do we do? Someone exclaimed. Just like before, only by attacking them directly can we break free. That's too difficult. Everyone looked around at the dense masses of sea demons and a multitude of deep-sea monsters, and the 7 sinister creatures exuded an unsettling aura, seemingly about to unleash dangerous abilities, just like the sinister mermaid. Damn it! No matter how hard. Let's fight them all. Kill! Kill! Everyone was roaring. Having been chosen by the Eye of Destiny, they all had extraordinary abilities, which might not show in normal times, but when it came to life and death, everyone could unleash their potential. They actually managed to force back many sea demons. Bursts of fighting power far exceeded before. Even more people were already rushing along the chains yet to be dismantled. Nightwatch and Fong Li were among them. They knew. The key point lay in those 7 sinister creatures. They must be just like the sinister mermaid with dangerous and tricky abilities. But if they could get close, they'd have a great chance to kill them. After all, they also saw many sea demons gathered around, seemingly protecting them. This is our chance to leave. The passage to survive the trial. Those with trump cards were throwing out their last bets, and Dunwoo in the fight suddenly developed a new ability from the sequence, Instantly Burst Seed. Nightwatch and Fong Li were at the forefront, along with the others, threatening and attacking the 7 sinister creatures. Boom, boom, boom. Massive amounts of flesh and blood burst in the battle. Waves clashed with distant thunder. The people inside the cabin also joined the battle. No one backed down. Nightwatch and Fong Li, among others, got blasted away but didn't hesitate to cut down the sea demons that lunged at them. Their eyes fixed on the 7 sinister creatures. Their bodies, though battered, were like sharp swords. Even in such desperate straits, they showed no fear. Their potentials and energies burst forth. This was truly the new era chosen by the Eye of Destiny. Gentlemen, are you okay? Nightwatch gasped, chuckling. Of course. Then, keep going. Watching many brave souls continue to attack. The 7 sinister creatures licked their lips, watching this scene. Look! They haven't given up yet. They still think there's a chance to escape. Unfortunately, they looked at a faint black shadow in the distance, sneered eerily. The sea demon is about to arrive. Chapter 272, God of Anxiety. The sea demon is coming. The eerie laughter of the 7 strange creatures reached everyone's ears. Sea demon. Upon hearing these 2 words, Fong Li and the others felt a sudden sinking feeling in their hearts. They looked up. In the distance, the sky dome was like the terrifying vortex at the level 6 entrance, with ripples seemingly rolling across it. Among the 9 strange creatures of the Devil's Sea, the most powerful existence, completely different from the others. The strange sea breeze chilled everyone to the bone. The booming thunder couldn't cover the raging fury like a tsunami. Is that what they referred to as the sea demon? Vague and immense silhouettes, in a terrifying posture, were crossing over from the clouds on the horizon. The current became noticeably more turbulent. Dozens of meters-high waves kept rolling up. The sky dome instantly became gloomy and dark. Countless tentacles, accompanying the terrifying body, pounced directly at everyone with a crushing presence. "What kind of monster is this?" murmured Fong Li and the others. Even though everyone had already shown their mettle and burst forth their potential and bloodlust in battle, the sight of this scene made everyone inevitably feel fear, their bodies trembling uncontrollably, the pressure too intense. "Quick! We must seize the last chance." Night Guard, regardless of his shock, roared loudly, jolting everyone awake, as they all bit down hard, bursting forth all their strength instantaneously. If the 7 strange creatures were very dangerous and troublesome, there was always a chance of survival to be seen. But such a terrifying creature, once it fully closed in, they simply couldn't withstand it. They roared and furiously attacked the 7 strange creatures. The strength that surged from their bodies arrived almost instantaneously. The 7 strange creatures clearly weren't going to give them that chance either. They were strange, but not stupid. They couldn't underestimate those who fought back in desperation. They retreated backward. At the same time, a vast number of sea demons suddenly turned back. They all surged toward them. Everyone gritted their teeth, their eyes bloodshot, making their final stand. And at that moment, "All of you, lend us your strength," Night Guard bellowed. He clasped his hands together, leaving a void between his palms once again. He wanted to launch the annihilation ability he used before. During this time, he had no protection, invoking an ultimate move by forsaking everything. And Fong Li also thrust his knife into his chest. A mass of blood burst forth, but at the same time, an even more powerful ability erupted, his hair wildly fluttering. "This is our final strike. Come on!" Night Guard shouted. The terrifying annihilation dust cannon burst forth with an unstoppable momentum. Fong Li also roared, his body ablaze with blood, every inch of his veins and blood vessels on the verge of exploding as he charged fiercely. Boom, boom, boom. The air vibrated. Waves were lifted by 2 visible ripples of impact in the space. The faces of the 7 strange creatures darkened. Stop them! They naturally felt the deadly danger. They didn't expect their prey to be so threatening. They began to use their abilities to gather other sea demons to defend. Even the deep-sea monsters cleared the water to block their way. Boom! The air suddenly burst with a bang. The deep-sea monsters were torn open with bloody holes by the annihilating air cannon. And Fong Li, without hesitation, turned into afterimages, sprinting forward in cooperation. 2 deadly auras swept over. Then, with a bang, a thick black fog also burst forth from the 7 strange creatures. They sneered, "Stay here and keep us company. Go to hell." Fong Li was bloodied and ferocious as he slashed down with his knife, colliding with Night Guard's air wave against the black fog barrier at the same time. Instantly, waves vibrated like boiling water, with ripples continuously rolling out. The next moment, bang! Strength suddenly exploded. Waves splashed up. On looking back, the 7 strange creatures stood in place, with scrapes on their bodies, but no fatal wounds, their eyes shimmering with a hint of coldness. Whereas Night Guard had a pale face and was vomiting blood, and Fong Li was smashed onto the sea surface. A large number of sea demons were celebrating with joyous roars. while everyone else had ashen faces. At the same time, boom, 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 the sound of massive tentacles moving finally arrived in front of them, and the fierce current washed over each ship. The terrifying body blocked out the sun, with a huge black shadow directly covering the entire area. The sea demon has finally arrived. A strange creature scraped its nails across its shredded flesh, then licked it, clearly very excited. Everything should end now. Next. Annihilate them all. Sea demon, another strange creature rasped. Let them soak in this icy seawater, then turn them into sea demons. Share the curse of this place. In the Devil's Sea, no one can have a second outcome. Everyone looked at the vast and terrifying sea demon with pale faces. It was clearly such a powerful entity, yet it seemed provoked, slowly withdrawing its tentacles. Merely this one action, everyone already felt the air being compressed, and a mass of fierce winds surged. Then, the tentacles slapped down. That sense of death nearly enveloped everyone, including the 7 strange creatures and countless sea demons. Their eyelids twitched. Wait. Why is the tentacle heading our way? Sea demon, wait a second. Damn. Run. Bang. Like a meteor falling, a mass of sea demon flesh and blood dyed a stretch of sea red. The 7 strange creatures were panting heavily, leaning on several deep sea monsters, barely dodging the blow. What's happening? Chapter 273. Why is it attacking us? You sea demon, are you insane? A strange creature roared lowly. Although you're a terrifying monster, you too are cursed. How dare you behave against the will of the Devil's Sea? There's only death for you. They endured the Devil's Sea, constantly fighting, making numerous ships and living beings that mistakenly entered this place sink and be buried here, and that's how they gained strength. Even if it meant they would be trapped here forever. Even if they became part of the devil. They were all willing to do it. The sea demon before them was the same. It had previously fallen here, causing a great commotion. But ultimately it couldn't resist the curse of the Devil's Sea and completely turned into a crazed monster under its suppressive will. And at this very moment, a hoarse yet furious voice resounded from the Sky Dome's mouthpiece. Patrick doesn't like it here. The tentacle swung again, this time the force bursting from the air's mouthpiece as well. The path it took exploded a huge amount of seawater. Sea demons shattered instantly. The 7 strange creatures' faces turned pale. What the heck is going on? The sea demons of the past were just like wild beast monsters. They never spoke, controlled by madness. But now, to erupt angrily and even speak? The crowd was also stunned in place. What exactly happened? Why are the most terrifying sea demons attacking them? At that time, the distant currents moved slowly, bringing a pitch-black large ship leisurely from beyond the sea surface into everyone's sight. Despite the fierce waves, the ship was unaffected and steadily moved toward them. Is there still a living ship? Night Guard and Fongli, supported by others, watched the scene with pale faces. But it seems there's no one on the deck. No, wait. There are people, but not human. They looked terrified as they watched dark shadows standing at the edge of the ship. Fong Li's expression changed. Is this a ghost ship? The black shadows on the ship stood silently, hauntingly observing their surroundings, while the ship also neared. At this moment, none of the crowd could leave, still trapped under some peculiar force. They could only watch the ship approach. But everyone had already drawn their weapons again. Those black shadows made their scalps tingle. And on the high platform stood 3 figures, who also seemed to calmly watch this place. Dark eyes with faint deep red hues. Everyone felt a sense of oppression. They didn't dare to breathe. One of the black shadows slowly took out a megaphone, and a hoarse voice transmitted. This is the Black Pearl liner. ? The crowd was slightly stunned. Now, any ship that wants to escape this place must follow our arrangements. The curse is about to erupt, and the only way to survive requires the strength of all of you. Some people couldn't care less that there was actually someone on the ghost ship speaking through a megaphone, only astonished. Wait, what curse, what eruption? Black Shadow. You ask too much. There's no time to explain, but this is your only chance. He calmly looked towards the sky dome. The will of the Devil's Sea is about to descend. The crowd looked uncertainly in the direction he pointed. The entire sky dome had darkened several shades, as if a massive amount of black fog was surging. Fong Li and others exchanged glances. They finally made a decision, saying solemnly, "What should we do?" At this moment, Su Qi was not on the Black Pearl. He stood on the top of Brother Hai Xing's head, surrounded by ceaseless strong winds. The yellow-robed priest's voice faintly rose. Unexpectedly, it knows you, but even after breaking the spiritual pollution, it's still cursed by the will of the Devil's Sea. What that being is, I dare not say, but it's probably related to the Anxious Land. After all, this place itself suppresses various demons and ghosts. Are you sure you want to take it with you? Nonsense. Su Qi, do you think the connections I, Su Buxian, have are based on deception? It's all because I value loyalty and set new standards. Coming from someone else, I would believe, the yellow-robed priest replied. But from your mouth, I need to think it over. Su Qi shook his head. This Brother Huang had lived quite a while, but his vision was lacking. Couldn't he save a friend himself? Couldn't he be loyal himself? Of course, on this premise, there was another inconspicuous reason, and that was when the exclamatory mark was triggered and the spiritual pollution expelled. Su Qi saw the source of the curse get provoked, directly targeting him. At that time, Su Qi knew something bad was about to happen. Thinking he must rely on Brother Hai Xing, the ritual, and everyone's strength. Comforted, Su Qi patted its head. Brother Hai Xing, hold on. Let's leave this place together. Understood, Squeeze. Patrick in his complete form let out a hoarse voice. Its mental state was unstable in this form, now fully relying on the ritual's power to communicate. It still retained its original simplicity and silliness. Only the terrifying killing intent could be felt by the many sea demons and eerie creatures below. 7 eerie creatures had already died, with numerous sea demon corpses floating on the sea surface. The other surviving eerie creatures were pale with terror, gnashing their teeth and barking angrily at the sky dome. Sea demon, you've gone mad. You're seeking death. The will of the Devil's Sea will never forgive you. You will be utterly cursed, devoured. Yet, Patrick paid no heed to their threats, intent on wiping out the detestable beings in this area. His massive tentacles violently swung, but at that moment, Patrick shuddered, his voice tinged with unease. It's come. The black fog spreading across the sky dome suddenly intensified. The seawater began to change. The area stained with the massive amount of sea demon corpses began to spread, turning the entire ocean area a dark red. The eerie creatures were excited, reverent, laughing hoarsely. The great will has descended. Everyone else looked terrified, trembling all over, and their Su Qi was staring ahead, seeing the vast dark red seawater crazily converging, a shadowy figure slowly emerging. He looked towards the shadow, a question mark above his head displayed. God of Anxiety. Su Qi's eyelids twitched slightly. Wait, another god? Another message leisurely popped up. Deep red fragments. God of Anxiety? Su Qi naturally connected it to the entire Anxious Land. Old Huang, you said before that the entire Anxious Land seemed to be suppressing some dangerous entity. Who was it again? The yellow-robed priest's voice suddenly trembled slightly, strangling. You lad, why ask about this? Don't ask, I don't know. This guy claims his own words are unreliable. How true could his words be? However, Su Qi felt he shouldn't give him the chance to feign ignorance anymore. After entering the next layer, he would make Old Huang spill everything. 9 layers. Suppress. These deep red fragments, could they possibly indicate its blood pressure? Su Qi looked at the vast seawater, the deep red shadow emerging from the dark red convergence, the eyes of countless people appearing as covered by red. Emotions like anxiety and despair were amplified countless times. Everyone was reeling. Each person appeared to have lost the hope for survival. Their eyes dimmed as if they were about to jump into the deep red sea to commit suicide. Even Patrick began to waver, his body trembling slightly. This was the existence that even terrified him, the curse seeming to pull him down again. And at this moment, Su Chi gently pressed on him. Reciting the sacred ritual language, Patrick gradually calmed down. "Have you calmed down?" "Patrick has calmed down." Afterward, Su Chi slowly stood up. Underneath the sky dome, his figure atop the full-bodied Patrick didn't seem very notable. Yet he stared directly at that deep red shadow. "Then next, just follow my command. Even in dire situations, there's still a path to life, just a bit riskier, a bit more lethal, involving more considerations." Gon Wansue. "Understood, Captain." Gon Wansue stood around the ritual, which had subtle fluctuations that remained unaffected. Numerous dark shadows slowly stood. They recited the sacred language. The ritual's fluctuation suddenly expanded. It made many affected personnel shudder. Their eyes became somewhat clearer. They realized what was happening and immediately joined the chanting. The fluctuation expanding even further. A large number of people also became more lucid. "Now, Patrick, just do as I just said. I'll leave the rest to you." Patrick earnestly and solemnly said, "Understood." He was about to act but suddenly paused again. "Wait, what was I supposed to do again?" Su Chi. "Forgot. This is a fool." Chapter 274. Follow the ghost ship. Fall into hell. Terrifying deep red phantoms loomed between the sea surface and the sky dome. They seemed to possess neither the motion nor the ability to attack, standing motionless, with only a terrifying aura whipping up fierce winds. At the same time, waves surged like natural disasters, with numerous sea demons and the remaining strange creatures letting out crazy roars with blood-red eyes. Yet, the horrific tide was blocked by the ritual centered on the Black Pearl. Boom! Patrick's enormous body, carried with astonishing demonic power, broke through the sea's boundaries. It was a terrifying existence itself, the most fearsome creature in the Devil's Sea if it weren't for its curse. "Quick, start the ship." At this moment, everyone was on board the Black Pearl. Abandoning the ships they initially rode on to maximize convergence, triggering the ritual's power, and also saving a number of people who would have started the other ships. Bloody waves surged with a multitude of monsters charging at them, frantically and densely. Su Chi stared at the deep red phantom. It just stood there, seemingly motionless, but maintaining a consistent distance from the ship. Natural disaster like hurricanes and gathering tsunamis rose hundreds of meters, attacking from all directions. "Brother Hai Xing." "Ha!" Patrick's entire tentacles grandiosely whipped out, piercing the sky. "Is the sea demon providing us with an escort?" "Why?" The crowd below was shocked. Someone growled, "Stop worrying about what's above. Focus. Half of us maintain the ritual, the rest fight." Now everyone was on one ship, and all the sea demons and monsters were attacking one spot. The terrifying roars were very close, with a large number of sea demons charging onto the ship more vigorously than before. The burst of battle grew more intense. The deep red phantom's eerie aura pressed down heavily, and several remaining strange creatures released a large amount of black fog. But the Black Pearl had the ritual paving the way. Any eerie blasts entering this place were blocked by the ritual's holy light. People were also approaching the sixth layer portal. And at this moment, the crowd froze, only truly understanding what this place was when they reached the terrifying black giant tornado. They discovered what it truly was. In the middle of the sea, a huge hole appeared. There was no visible slope, like a cliff, only the fractured cross-section. The surrounding giant waves, like natural disasters, now seemed like mere ripples. And the Black Pearl seemed like a grain of sand in these ripples. That black vortex was a continuous, majestic black fog, fiercely sweeping everything, as if it could easily shred anyone who stepped into it. Someone picked up a compass in their hand and murmured, "Is this the final destination pointed by the compass?" The location of the entrance to the sixth layer. It's clearly an abyss. Where's the entrance? Someone's eyes shifted slightly. Down there. That down there is the entrance. Below the sea abyss, in the raging black fog hurricane, there was a channel emitting ripples. Having gone through several layers, they naturally recognized it at a glance. But the question is, how do we get there? Someone still growled in battle, as the deep red phantom silently watched them, the terrifying oppression making everyone always on edge. Fong Li's face was pale as he fiercely stared at the horrific storm. The eye of the storm. We must enter the eye. Those present were also the elite who had been at the forefront before, gathering information rapidly. A young man said gravely, "There are currents below being drawn into it, forming a path, but it looks very unstable." Another person's gaze flickered. "One method is to detour to the other side, where the path is closest and the risk smallest." Yishou shook his head, gravely saying, "There's no time. They won't give us that opportunity. We should immediately choose the stable current." Su Qi gently said beside them, "Wait, I don't think that works. Your methods are too risky. Right now, the most secure method is to disregard all currents and just charge in with an unstoppable force." "Are you joking, just charging in?" The crowd was stunned, suddenly turning to look at this young man who had suddenly appeared among them. "Wait! Who the heck are you?" The people here were all elite who had been at the forefront before, everyone familiar with each other's faces. Suddenly, a strange young man speaking unsettling words naturally attracted attention instantly. And at this moment, Yishou and Fong Li suddenly widened their eyes. "Su!" Yishou hadn't even begun speaking. "You!" Fong Li's eyelids twitched. "You're also in this world." Yishou paused, looking at Fong Li. Fong Li pointed at Su Qi. "Brother Yi, this is the guy I told you about before. Shrouded in all sorts of strangeness, ended the previous layer without explanation. Are you introducing me?" Yishou coughed awkwardly, embarrassedly saying, "Brother Fong, this is Su Buxian." Fong Li's expression paused. "That name sounds so familiar." "Wait." Fong Li sharply looked at Yishou. "Is this the friend you mentioned, Brother Yi?" Yishou helplessly smiled and nodded. He roughly knew what experiences Fong Li had gone through. "Well, Brother Su, while it's surprising to see you here, now is not the time for reunions. What does charging down mean?" He felt Su Qi's idea must have its reason, although it wasn't necessarily. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the strange power burst forth again, hitting the Black Pearl, and a multitude of monsters had already charged onto the ship. The crowd growled, "Stop joking. Just make a decision now." Chapter 275. They could hardly pay attention to the words of a suddenly appearing person. They were in a moment of critical life and death. "Your Highness, Black Shadow, trouble you to take down the sails and ride the white current in the direction of 3 o'clock. This is our only chance." The entire Black Pearl was steered by the Black Shadows, led by the three of them all the way, with many requests being answered. They held these three mysterious entities in awe, for they had clearly brought them hope in their direst moments. But now, the three Black Shadows did not respond to their pleas. Instead, they slowly cleared space. A multitude of Black Shadows emerged from every shadowy nook within the ship's cabin, standing mightily on deck. The crowd watched this scene in shock. "What's going on?" The Black Shadows responsible for the entire ship came out from inside. "Your Highness, Black Shadow," at this critical juncture, Fong Li's brows furrowed as he said, "Why stop?" The navigation of the Black Pearl itself was the responsibility of the Black Shadows. The crew only needed to chant and perform ceremonies to ensure the ship would not be overtaken by sea demons. But now, with the ship completely motionless, everyone felt an immense pressure. Su Qi pondered. "Maybe it's because they think your idea is too insane, unwilling to take the risk." "Fong Li, isn't your method even more insane?" No, that's outright suicidal. Su Chi said, not necessarily. He looked at the black shadows. Now set sail. Question mark. Brother Yi suddenly sensed something and looked towards the black shadows. Incredibly, the three black shadows started moving. They hoisted the large sails that hadn't been used during their previous escape. Fong Li and the others? Wait, what are they doing? The crowd wanted to escape, to rush into the eye of the storm along the current. A feat that would certainly require great speed. Raising the sails at this moment would only increase resistance and become their burden. And most importantly, why would His Highness Black Shadow listen to the commands of this young man? Turn the rudder, aim for the eye of the storm, Su Chi said gently. Black shadows quickly took the helm in unison. Countless sea demons roared. The crew, witnessing this, couldn't free their hands to do anything else but fight anxiously. Brother Yi watched this with a foreboding feeling. Fools were still puzzled why the black shadows listened to Su Buxian, while the wise already trembled, grabbing onto nearby masts with forced chuckles. Brother Su, are you really planning to rush through it? What else? It's impossible, Brother Yi exclaimed in fear. Even if I scored 12 points in high school physics, I can see that it's impossible to get through unless the ship can fly. Just need to have an initial acceleration, Su Chi stated lightly. Aye. Brother Yi shivered. It's not easy to meet once, Brother Su. I want to return in one piece. Then be careful. Su Chi also glanced at the time, almost there. Ganwansue, you may withdraw for now. The surrounding black shadows respectfully responded to the gloomy voice. Yes, Captain. Around them, the mass of black shadows melded into the darkness, slowly vanishing from sight. At this moment, Su Chi had already taken the position at the helm and said, Next, gentlemen, follow the great black pearl. Into hell together. A terrifying wind screamed suddenly. Everyone looked back in horror. The colossal sea demon, like a black hole's maw, drew a deep breath, its body rapidly and hugely expanding to 5 times its original size, like a balloon. And Brother Yi finally understood the source of that so-called acceleration. He was stunned for a moment, then roared suddenly, Everyone, forget the sea demons. Grab onto anything you can find around you. Here it comes. Like a sweeping tempest, a terrifying gale burst forth in an unstoppable, forceful flood. Patrick, though simple-minded, remembered the exact time to burst. His essential reliability in clutch moments proved to be incredibly imposing. In an instant, the sails of the Black Pearl underwent a severe deformation. Thankfully, the ships of Devil's Sea were no ordinary vessels and could withstand such forces. The rear of the whole ship split open, as if blasted by a cannon. Hold on! The crowd looked in dismay at this spectacle. Fong Li's face turned pale as he looked at Brother Yi. Brother Yi, could he be right? Can we truly fly into the eye of the storm? Or are we going to die in there? Brother Yi. Who are you asking? Who should I ask? He held his face in frustration. Anyway, do your best. Don't let go. Oh! The Black Pearl suddenly picked up speed again. The entire ship roared and flew out. Beneath the violent tossing, numerous sea demons fell into the abyss, and everyone's faces turned pale as they tightly grasped everything around them. And Su Chi slowly took control of the ship's rudder, intending to cross thousands of kilometers with precision under the massive wind funnel and land on the ripples of the 6th layer's passage. This required fine-tuning, and the slightest mistake would cause a direct crash, tearing everything apart. Everyone clearly knew this, and many looked towards the sail with anxious and uneasy expressions. But they discovered the sail was rotating in an orderly way, and the ship was indeed flying steadily. Fong Li muttered, "How extraordinary must the computational power and situational responsiveness be?" Suddenly, he looked at Su Chi and exclaimed in terror, "What the hell? You're still looking back." At this moment, Su Chi's attention wasn't on the direction of flight. He still had an important thing to do. Su Chi looked at the deep red apparition, a seemingly unconscious wandering spirit that was staring at him. Right then and there, instead of erupting to impede them, it actually extended its hands, and a massive amount of deep red currents slowly surged towards Patrick. So, that's how it is. Its goal didn't appear to be to stop them from escaping, but Patrick. The reason it had fixated on him to actively approach. It was all because of Patrick. Was this god so deeply in love with Brother Haixing? At this moment, Patrick's eyes were filled with rage. Back off! Back off, you stinking thing! Don't think about controlling me again. Patrick. Am not afraid of you. Its struggle to break free was immensely powerful. The deep red apparition even slightly fluctuated, with a question mark above its head displaying two characters. Greed. Brother Haixing's constitution seemed incredibly special. After all, sometimes he appears clumsy but always manages to act contrary to what's expected. Just like Su Qi was calculating the distance and slowly pulled out an item from his waist. A crystal-clear conch that was something unique to Brother Haixing, usually kept in his trousers. At this very moment it was displaying information. Patrick's favorite magical conch. Quality. Legend. Consumption. None. Equipment introduction. One day, Patrick's hometown turned to ruins. All his good friends vanished. He felt abandoned and stored all his memories inside the conch, hoping to one day find his hometown and friends again. Effect. When you use it, it can open a passage. Note. Congratulations on earning Haixing's friendship, for only a trusted friend can use it. But also please be cautious, and do not use it lightly unless absolutely necessary. It's highly unstable, possessing a power that's dreadfully taboo. Be careful not to awaken it completely. Brother Haixing. Su Qi looked at Patrick and said, "It's time to go with me." The conch suddenly started to flicker and emit a melodious conch sound. Patrick, who was still struggling fiercely, suddenly stiffened and looked over in a daze. It gradually shrank, and its colossal tentacles swiftly shrank. Pop! In an instant, Patrick sprung back to its small starfish form and fell into the water. Everyone watched this scene in bewilderment, including the deep red apparition, which also stirred slightly as if it wanted to envelop the surrounding eerie power and once again turn Patrick into a cursed breeding ground. But the next moment, Patrick stuck its head out directly from a bucket on the ship. I feel like something inside the conch was calling me. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. What the hell? How did it get over here? Su Qi tossed the conch to him. You play with this. I'm guessing someone's going to freak out soon. Everyone suddenly felt their hair stand on end, and as they turned around, they were drenched in cold sweat, because the deep red apparition was almost touching the black pearl, close enough to grasp, its huge hollow eyes staring fixedly at Patrick and Su Qi like two meteorites. I won't stay for dinner then. Su Qi also let go of the rudder and waved his hand. No need to see me out, just to the door is fine. See you next time. The next moment, the whole black pearl disappeared into the storm, pierced through everything, and rushed into the ripples of the sixth layer's passage. Chapter 276. Supplies before the battle. The black pearl was engulfed by ripples. But this time, the crew did not lose consciousness. The whole ship was wrapped in the aurora, traversing through vast swathes of dark tides. Although there was some bumpiness, it was not violent enough to be thrown off. Everyone clung tightly to the vessel, seeking sanctuary and looking around at the boundless darkness. They let out a small sigh of relief. They had finally escaped the accursed Devil's Sea. Even as the red phantom stood motionless, the sense of oppression was too terrifying. Had it not been for the ceremony countering the twisted pressure, they might have all perished long ago. And in the last moment, the red phantom was close at hand, as if endless rage was hitting them in the face. This emotion made everyone's hearts tremble involuntarily. They almost suffocated. Just now, I don't know if it was an illusion, but I always felt that the moment we left, it seemed to do something, Fong Li said with a focused expression. Yes. Someone hesitated and nodded. So you all felt that too. This was not an unfounded suspicion, as in that instant, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. More importantly, The sacred light from the ship's ritual nearly extinguished at that moment. Could it be a curse? Nightwatch looked around cautiously. The boss of this world shouldn't follow us down, right? Everyone's opinions were mixed, and they all felt uneasy, sensing that the Red Phantom was extraordinary and quite frightening. At this moment, Su Chi was also watching the scene, not participating. The yellow-robed priest within the ring sighed softly. "Sigh. What are you sighing about?" Su Chi asked calmly. The yellow-robed priest spoke somberly. "Others may not discover it, but I saw it. That Red Phantom has placed a certain curse or lock on you. Normal, it's in a hurry." Su Chi looked at the deep red mark on his arm. He could see that the Red Phantom was very angry. Patrick was really important to it because that was the body it intended to possess in order to escape its confinement. A body capable of housing its great strength. The result was hijacked by himself. And the mark on the arm was also a curse. Since you have broken its residing curse, then you should bear all this. The mark on his arm displayed a message. Mark left by the god of anxiety. When someone shows hostility towards you, your blood fury value will increase. Current blood fury value 0. When the blood fury value reaches 1000000, it will descend upon you. It will control your mind, taking away everything you have. It seemed the curse originally meant for Patrick had now been transferred to himself. The yellow-robed priest said, "I don't know if it's in a hurry, but I do know you should be. I have observed that Red Phantom can affect one's sanity, driving people to despair and suicide. Be cautious of this strange power." However, the yellow-robed priest did not have much reaction. It merely wanted to give a reminder, as Su Chi was too prone to getting into trouble. It had no idea that the being was divine, and just considered it a sinister life form. Su Chi covered the mark on his arm with his sleeve. "No big problem. My will has always been very strong. Even seeing the message with a little red, I won't click on it. That's hardly a sign of a strong will." The yellow-robed priest did not bother to argue further, its tone slightly weary. "There's another extremely important thing. I need to sleep for a while. My soul fire is nearly out and I'm struggling to hold on, so I can't help you for a short time. Anyway, hope you don't kick the bucket halfway through." "Excuse me for saying so. Su Chi, your concern is quite redundant. Besides, this doesn't seem that important." The yellow-robed priest did not speak. Whether it passed out from anger or had already fallen silent was unknown. At this moment, the black pearl suddenly burst out from the endless dark tides. Streaks of light caused the people, who had been in darkness for so long, to involuntarily close their eyes. When they opened them again, the crew only then began to adjust. "Wait, the ship's moving so fast. Are we still sailing?" "Sailing my ass. Where's the water?" F***CK. "Hold on tight. We're about to crash." The Black Pearl, with its incredibly rapid speed, charged towards the front with an unstoppable momentum. Although the crew's hearts quaked with fear, thankfully the Black Pearl was no ordinary object and it smashed into the ground, sinking in without sustaining any damage. However, the impact still brought misery to the crew, and many were thrown off. Luckily, they were no ordinary individuals and their injuries healed quickly under the protection of the Aurora. Their bodies now rugged and tough. As the crew felt dazed, a voice slowly rose. "Here comes another batch of people. Pity, no familiar faces." Fong Li raised his head slightly, his expression showing a trace of surprise. "So many people?" There were many people around, calmly looking in all directions, along with various wrecked large vehicles. And their surroundings were an enclosed space, full of walls with the previous ripples having disappeared. But there were many wide pillars made of unknown metal, reflecting cold light, although it was unclear their purpose. On closer inspection, one could find many red alarms and mechanical ports. "Wait, why does everyone's vehicle look intact and properly parked?" Night Watch murmured, gazing at the Black Pearl standing upright. "Only ours," directly broke through the ground, nearly destroying the ship and killing us. To notice that first, But then again, nobody was injured. Su Chi said, "Don't pretend you don't see that many have lost their teeth, Brother Su. When you reach a certain age, it's normal to undergo a change of teeth." Chapter 277. Yi Shou sighed helplessly. Su Chi was actually the first one to leap off the Black Pearl. Let's check out the situation here first. Gan Wensue and the Black Shadow Corps had already returned upon stepping into the ripples. The new level seemed a bit different. "Brother Fong, let's go, we'll do it together." Yi Shou waved to Fong Li. Fong Li ultimately joined them, feeling that Brother Yi Shou was someone he regretted not meeting sooner, while Su Buxian beside him felt like someone he would regret meeting. But now they had no choice but to stick together. Fong Li looked around. Everyone present had fallen from the level above, and it appeared everyone was waiting for something. Fong Li looked at the pillar in the center. "Look, over there. There's a countdown on the pillar." There was an electronic clock on the pillar, its deep red digits slowly counting down. "There are now 50 seconds left." Yi Shou slightly raised his eyebrows and said, "It seems we can only wait for the countdown to end to find out what will happen." The 50 seconds were short, and for the newcomers, they had just gathered the necessary information when the countdown reached 0. And at the moment the countdown ended, the entire space flashed wildly with warning red lights. An ear-piercing alarm blared. A voice was spreading throughout the enclosed space. "Warning! Please pay attention now. All handlers, you have descended into the basement level. All zones will soon automatically lower for a period of time. The points you have accumulated can be exchanged for a tool at any pillar. Please note that you can exchange for only one tool, and any remaining points will be void after the exchange. Simultaneously, you may leave, and the tools can be taken with you." This voice was not mechanical. It had a very magnetic tone, and the slight chuckle implied the presence of a living being. "But a reminder, you can only exchange for tools and choose to leave while the zones are lowering. At other times, there's only one thing you need to do." It chuckled lightly. "That is to survive." Without any hesitation, everyone immediately approached a pillar to check their points. Each column was immense, large enough to surround 1,000 people without issue. Mechanical windows were opening, revealing palm scanners to input spiritual energy. "I have 213,000 points. I have 301,329 points. I only have 131,333 points." These were the light points that everyone had absorbed in the previous world. At this moment, Yi Shou stood at the window, looking at the points displayed above with some surprise, and turned to Su Chi. "Brother Su, I saw it. Who knew that points and points would be stacked together?" murmured Yi Shou. "So this is the effect of points that Paradise mentioned before? Then aren't we at a great advantage?" Su Chi had yet to speak. At that very moment, the voice spoke again. "By the way, I forgot to remind you not to rush the exchange because..." The voice chuckled lightly. "The lower the level, the better the rewards. The very last layer may even yield the most precious relics left by the gods. Of course, it is also filled with even more terrifying dangers. So weigh your options, as such an opportunity only comes once." Su Chi calmly looked at the more than 100 million points displayed on the window. "See, the condition has arrived. Having more points doesn't necessarily mean better items, and with the decline of levels, it's easy to die while holding a bunch of points and leave empty-handed. It doesn't stop me from drooling on the sidelines," Yi Shou said enviously at Su Chi's points. "That's almost reaching 200 million, right?" Su Chi's points had been growing. He had killed too many pollution monsters during the previous elimination round, and after entering the Anxious Land, the several worlds played a crucial decisive role. "Stop looking. It's just like money. The more you have, the more troubles you get," Su Chi said calmly as he closed the window. "It seems that the last level is the ultimate destination of these points." Meanwhile, Fong Li is also cautiously poking his head out. "What are you guys talking about?" "Nothing much," Night Guard sighed softly. I just feel that sometimes the gap between people can be even greater than the gap between people and pigs. Damn the wealth disparity. For someone like you who is a second-generation rich kid to say something like that, it's pretty shameless. At this moment, the whole area was still descending. Everyone was looking at the dazzling array of items with bright eyes, many of which could immediately enhance one's combat strength. But no one was making an exchange, after all. There were better things later on. Compared to the decent-looking tools in front of them, they cared more about the power of the temple. That was everyone's true objective. It's still not clear how many areas there are, or if we will encounter others, but clearly there are far fewer people than when we first entered the temple. Night Guard paused. Speaking in a low voice, Fong Li said, "It's not just fewer people. I also saw a familiar face." He cautiously pointed to someone. "Do you see that guy over there?" In the distance, there was an enormous abnormality with a muscular body and a pattern on his shoulder blade. Someone from Chaos Commerce. And over there, people from the Dark Organization. The middle-aged woman in the black robe is from the Wanling Conference. Fong Li had an understanding of the various forces in the present world, and his voice trembled slightly as he whispered, "These are all extremely large forces. Even if only getting in through connections, they are core potential members who have been screened." He himself had paid a huge price to get his entry slot from Chaos Commerce, so he was deeply aware of how powerful these forces could be. Each of these incredibly powerful forces could rival the Spirit King. Su Qi looked over. "No worries, Night Guard, and I also come from a superpower, known as the Hustlers Sect." Night Guard. Don't talk nonsense. The key thing was Fong Li believed it. Given that both of them indeed had extraordinary abilities and possessed many tools, he was really reflecting on all the forces he knew, but after thinking for a while, Fong Li shook his head apologetically. "Sorry, my knowledge isn't that vast. This name, I don't seem to have heard of it. It must be a very mysterious organization. Of course, if you want to join, I could recommend you. Once you join, you won't have to worry about food or drink." "No, food and drink won't be a problem." Fong Li looked both surprised and excited. "Really?" Brother Su Buxian. His family had always dreamt of joining a major organization that could stand its ground in the future, to have a secure place amidst the upcoming chaos. He didn't expect the opportunity to present itself now. "Of course, but while I can recommend you, wanting to join requires a lot of preparation and could be very difficult." "Are you sure?" Su Qi looked at Fong Li with a profound gaze. Fong Li was now seriously nodding his head. "I'm sure. I want to try no matter what." "Okay. I see your determination. I'll inform you about some aspects of joining later, but it's secretive. You must keep it confidential." "Understood," Fong Li said with some excited emotion. "Brother Su, I admit I was too loud earlier. You're so righteous. From now on, you're my brother. No worries, we'll be from the same sect soon. No need for such formality." Night Guard sank into a deep silence. He wanted to speak up several times to remind that this was an organization created by Brother Su himself, and the club didn't even have many people. But seeing Fong Li's hopeful eyes and the amiable atmosphere between him and Su Qi, he couldn't bear to speak up. "Brother Su, you're getting less and less decent. So freaking sinful." At this moment, the area was descending rapidly, and with a loud bang, there was clearly a sound of heavy latches locking into place. The entire area had stopped. Everyone's expressions tensed up, all ready for battle. But no monsters charged out. Just a huge lucky cat falling from the sky dome, tens of meters tall, wrapped in various bandages, with a bell hanging around its neck. Su Qi looked at it oddly. "Cat, brother?" Chapter 278. The Wooden Man Game. "Is that Brother Cat?" Su Qi looked at the cat in front of him, wrapped in bandages and sprinkled with some huge cat. It was sprinkled with a bit of gold dust, and glittering diamond crystals on its body, slightly stiff, and the expression on its face was fiercely stretched by the bandages. Someone had painted a cat face on it, so it clearly looked like a lucky cat. The reason Su Qi found it strange. was that it somewhat resembled his former teammate from Love, Death, Super Gamer, the elemental devouring beast, Brother Cat. After all, Brother Haixing had already appeared. At the time, according to the production team, they were all sent to their desired places at the same time. As to why it would appear here, Brother Haixing said he couldn't remember anything. Su Qi looked at this gigantic lucky cat. Whether it's Brother Cat or not, the answer will come soon. At this moment, the gigantic lucky cat slowly stretched out its paw, the bell on its chest slightly jingling. A faintly flickering handprint appeared on it. Ding, ding, ding. That voice's chuckle came again from inside the pillar. Let me explain the rules. We are about to enter the Death Woodman game. Survive for 20 minutes and you can start descending. If no one manages to do that when the time is up, everyone will be eaten. Boom! A ripping sound followed by the lucky cat's head rumblingly turned away, its back to the people, but the bell on its chest still remained in everyone's line of sight. Then, with emotionless mechanical eerie music. When the woodman turns its back, you can move. Once it turns its head back, you must remain still. Sounds easy to survive, but I always feel it's not that simple, Fong Li said in a grave voice. The others were also calm and solemn at this moment. They weren't fools. To have come from the 9th layer until now, the dangers they faced became more and more lethal. How could it be so easy to survive? Then that voice continued. Of course, there's another little surprise. On top of survival, if someone can ring the bell on its chest, I can double your points. However, there's only one slot available. First come, first served. It echoed slowly with a light chuckle throughout the entire area, then disappeared. At this moment, many hesitated for an instant, then started to charge forward. They knew that if their points could be doubled, they became somewhat eager. The tool exchange window showed that only one item could be exchanged, but a grayed out section hadn't opened up yet. The points must have some other use. In any case, increasing one's points was the unanimous judgment of many. With insufficient information for judgment, they just charged forward. But many people calmly watched the scene. Not rational enough. But it's good. At least it can help us get more information. Yisho looked at Su Qi. What do you say, Brother Su? Su Qi looked at the gigantic lucky cat. There's nothing to say. Haven't you noticed that the walls around us have already changed? Fong Li and Yisho both turned their eyes toward the distant walls. The enclosed area was huge, and since the pillars were all off to one side, the lucky cat's back was against the furthest wall. Now they could vaguely make out ghostly faces appearing in the tall walls and dark red blood flowing out. The next moment, snap! The lucky cat suddenly turned its head, its eyes shining red, and the entire area's alarm sounded vigorously. Everyone quickly froze, those in the forefront, greedy yet extremely cautious, always watched the movements. But there's always someone who couldn't react in time, considering the lucky cat's speed of turning its head was too swift and abrupt. 5 people stumbled and couldn't stabilize their stance. The lucky cat's body didn't move, but it slowly opened its mouth. The darkness inside sent a chill down everyone's spine, especially those 5, with their hair standing on end. And in an instant, a multitude of tentacles burst forth. A dense mass directly grabbed the 5 and swallowed them in a blink, not even giving them a chance to scream or beg for mercy. That was it. The crowd was startled, sweat-soaked. However, Su Qi paused for a moment. It seems it's Brother Cat indeed. Even if it isn't, it belongs to the same species as Brother Cat. At this time, the lucky cat didn't turn its head back, its deadpan eyes as if watching each individual, every silent and not daring to move. But things were indeed not that simple. The walls burst forth with a great surge of blood, and the ghostly faces with roaring screams violently attacked. Is that it? It wasn't enough to startle the crowd or make them tremble. After all, they were not ordinary people. Knowing that they absolutely must not move, they would naturally do everything possible to prevent any and all means. The torrent of blood and ghost face rushed toward them. But it caused no harm. The crowd suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, Just an illusion indeed. And the very next second, someone screamed in agony, "Ah!" A knife suddenly penetrated his stomach, cutting open a huge gash, with blood and entrails spilling out. The sound didn't make the lucky cat move. As long as the body's movement wasn't too big, it wouldn't be a problem. But it didn't relax the crowd one bit. More screams followed, bloody and bone-scraping. Intense pain caused many to collapse, their pale faces any movement. Chapter 279. Lucky Cat seemed to instantly detect the movement, its numerous tentacles suddenly stretching out for kilometers, directly grabbing everyone who moved. Brother Yi, Brother Su. And at this moment, Fong Li's voice was also trembling, hoarse, as if he was in extreme pain. It hurt so much. Something was trying to burst out of his throat. Suddenly, he spewed out a large worm, along with his trachea and a great deal of blood. What's going on? Brother Ye's complexion trembled slightly. Why did it become? But he suddenly shuddered. The words he wanted to say abruptly stopped, and with a look of terror, he moved his eyes to his belly where a rust-covered bellows had pierced him, and then his stomach visibly swelled. The horrific sensation turned Brother Ye's face bright red. He was experiencing tremendous pain. His body also trembled slightly. Even so, they all maintained an incredible willpower and didn't move a muscle. Brother Ye's trembling voice came, "Brother Su, don't move at all." He looked painfully towards Su Qi. The latter, his body bore a glowing red iron brand that sizzled against his skin, surrounded by wisps of smoke. Yet, Brother Su didn't make a sound. What, did this guy not even have candy when he got shots as a kid? Screams of agony were non-stop. Various gruesome scenes were as if undergoing brutal torture, and Lucky Cat was like entering a buffet, indiscriminately swallowing with its many tentacles. While Su Qi just silently watched the scene. His left eye was an ordinary eye, capable of seeing the miserable state of everyone, including the glowing red iron brand on his own body. But his right eye was the spiritual eyes, modified by the evil god's eye. Everyone shuddered as if with Parkinson's, wailing in pain, but in reality their bodies were all unharmed. Their skins all bore a ghost face that was weirdly laughing. This was the real deadly trap of the statue game. Everything was indeed as complicated as everyone had anticipated, but despite being on guard against everything, they still had to face it all head-on. Except Su Qi. He looked towards the ghost face, which was weirdly smiling and was using the glowing iron brand to sizzle and leave blackened traces inch by inch in his flesh. But it wasn't over yet. Next, it was going to take that iron brand and run it over this pretty boy's face again. It was savoring it all, and couldn't wait to hear this guy scream. But half a day passed with no sound, which made it and the other ghost faces feel somewhat out of place. Could it be that he had fainted? But not even a shiver. The ghost face slightly lifted its head, then suddenly stared in shock, because Su Qi was smiling at it. Could this guy see me? Or is he looking at the iron brand? Moreover, why is he still smiling? That smile seemed somewhat irritating, as if telling it, "Didn't you have your meal? All right." Erasing its might, they thought it was foolish. The temperature of the iron brand did not rise further. Too high of a temperature would, in fact, result in a loss of pain. However, the iron brand visibly grew bigger, and sharp red spikes emerged. They could directly penetrate flesh, bone, deep into the vital organs. The ghost face's smile grew more ferocious. Terrifying hallucinations bring about real pain that's undiminished, and everyone would feel as if their insides were being gouged out, terror reaching deep into their souls. But the iron brand was almost piercing his chest, and yet the person in question remained unfazed. It even drew the attention of the other ghost faces, which looked over with strange glances. The ghost face prostrated in front of Su Qi gritted its teeth in shame, unable to lift its head among its peers. "Don't lose heart," Su Qi softly consoled. "You've been working very hard. Ghost face. Who the hell are you comforting?" It wanted to block off its ghostly creature, but it still wanted this guy to witness real horror. And in this very moment, Lucky Cat slowly turned its head again, All ghost faces halted their movements, and everyone gasped for air, drenched in sweat, and collapsed on the ground, pale-faced. Someone touched their belly in terror. Where are my intestines that fell out? Where is the steel nail that was stirring my eyeball? What about the thing stuffed in my behind? Those who could stand in this place were beings of great willpower. Brother Yi and Fong Li were among those standing, especially Brother Yi. Despite being an obvious uninformed rich second generation, it seems he underwent rigorous training before the ranking battles, and he had transformed. But even so, both of them were now breathlessly gasping. So it was indeed an illusion. But when the pain is at 100%, even if it's an illusion, it's not something a normal person can handle. There are very few who can endure the extreme punishment of 1,000 cuts and carvings. You'd better be mentally prepared. The second statue game will be even more terrifying. Su Qi spoke lightly at this moment. He had noticed that the ghost faces on everyone had closed their eyes, seemingly just having absorbed everyone's pain and despair, digesting it, the power of the ghost face also becoming stronger, more solid than before. More terrifying. Fong Li clenched his teeth, his body slightly trembling. I will definitely get through this. The weight of what he carries is more important than his own suffering. Brother Yi also clenched his fists tightly. I'll give it my all too. Full force ahead. Su Qi looked at the two cheering each other on. Are you guys preparing for a graduate school exam? However, this indeed was a big problem. Ghostface would absorb the emotions of many people, turning them into its own strength, watching as they gradually solidified. Su Qi had reason to suspect that if things continued in this trend, Ghostface might cause real harm. Boom! At this moment, a terrifying explosion suddenly came from where Lucky Cat was. Brother Yi Fong Li looked over. It turned out someone couldn't hold back any longer, and even though they were pale and not yet recovered, in the blink of an eye, they ran to press the bell imprint on the Lucky Cat. Only, this path was definitely not that simple. Anyone who drew near had their ghost face explode with power once more, and this time, one could clearly see the bell on the Lucky Cat's neck glowing brightly. At the same time, those who rushed near the Lucky Cat were fiercely knocked back by some kind of hallucination. This time, they were injured with slash wounds from claws on their bodies. What happened? Why do they have wounds? What did you guys see? The crowd looked at these few in surprise and uncertainty, as some trembled and touched their own wounds. I saw many terrifying monsters pounce at me. I saw a dense, dangerous array of iron hooks flying towards me. I saw. The phantoms they saw were all different, yet they truly happened. Hallucinations came to life? Everyone instantly felt a chill all over. No, it only happens when you get close to the Lucky Cat, someone said gravely. If you want to touch that bell, you must overcome all obstacles. Many who had learned this information calmed their expressions and even seemed eager to try. Those with strong willpower are, of course, fearless in the face of danger. However, as the crowd considered trying, the Lucky Cat's head moved once again, twisting instantly. The bloody tide once again descended terribly, and the ghost face opened its eyes once again. Su Qi watched all this without haste. His spiritual eyes saw through deception. Such hallucinations only tickled him. It was like giving himself a scratchy bath. And most importantly, Su Qi had discovered this ghost face had a high resemblance to the Black Shadow, as if they were of the same black fog. Derivative power. Just like Gon Wansue and the Black Shadow Core, and while people continued to scream, Su Qi suddenly noticed a second ghost face. He glanced over slightly. Calling for help? The ghost face snickered. Call then call. If I can't do it alone, then let's bring another. Normally, this kind of thing is grab first, serve first. The ghost faces wouldn't share with each other. But now, there's no choice, having worked so hard on this guy and breaking a sweat, and not even a peep of effort. I'm definitely not up to it. Anyway, there are many ghost faces wandering around. Those without a host could only feed on the despair drifting through the dark red tide. I'm willing to let them, and they are certainly eager. And there it was, the chainsaw in the second ghost face's hand started up again. However, as it anticipated, the other party not only didn't frown but also revealed a slight smile. Damn, still not enough. Then continue to call for help. I refuse to believe this. Chapter 280 Bell and Cat. Pain. Too painful. Yishou and Fong Li clenched their teeth tightly, their eyes bloodshot. The pain was like thousands of needles piercing directly into the soul, and it also carried a completely different trembling sensation, as if numerous hands were dragging them into hell. They struggled to lift their gaze. Everyone else was experiencing the same plight. Yishou's eyelids suddenly twitched. His heart trembled. Su, brother. In his line of sight, surrounding Su Qi were terrifying objects. Electric saws, butcher knives, beetle worms, and so on, densely packed around him. Just one glance was enough to make one's hair stand on end. And Su Qi's appearance was even grimmer. Flesh and blood flying everywhere, bones cracking noisily, piece by piece. There were also numerous extreme punishment items, floating around in layers both near and far, each one adorned with a ghost face that seemed to be screaming. It seemed like all the ghost faces wandering on the outside had gathered here. The cruel methods of pain and the prey that refused to submit even in the face of death excited them even more. They couldn't even squeeze into the periphery. At this moment, Fong Li's body was trembling slightly as he lifted his gaze. What grudge? What animosity? Has Brother Su violated the heavenly rules? Brother Su? Yishou's voice trembled. Are you still there? Su Qi's voice came through the noise of the electric saw. I'm fine. I feel good right now. Fong Li was stunned for a moment. He suddenly felt ashamed. He couldn't even bear this pain. But the ghost faces were even more shocked. Damn it. We've all ramped up the intensity. And you still feel good. In the anxious land, the special ghost faces were now exuding their own strength. While they were desperately trying, Su Qi was observing them, his spiritual eyes faintly flickering. These so-called illusions ultimately attacked the spirit and the feedback to the body. His spiritual power was already outstanding, and his spiritual eyes could completely see through any illusion. After observing for a while, he thought, having the ability to create illusions, feeding on emotions, possessing the potential for growth and collectiveness, this seems to be quite good indeed. He owned a vast expanse of black mist pool, which contained unique strength. Gan Wansue had drawn strength from it to form entities that were of the same origin as him, namely the 70 Black Shadows, forming the Shadow Army. But in reality, it was still in its infancy. The abilities of the Black Shadows had not been fully developed, and their troop type was single and lacked diversity. If the power of the ghost faces could be integrated, perhaps this situation could be broken. As the chaos of the present world approached, everyone was frantically seeking future sanctuary, hoping to find a major power that could offer a place to reside, so as not to be reduced to the struggling lowest forms of life. Yet, Su Qi had chosen the most dangerous path, to lead a team from obscurity to prominence, one that had no foundation and was even currently unformed. Since that's the case, that's about it. Su Qi, having understood the information about the ghost faces, decided to get them into his grasp. At present, it seemed that the power formed along the way by the Hustler sect was not insignificant, but apart from the official the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce, the abnormal organization Final Home, and the Black Shadow Corps, there was also a frail priest. The rest were still in a state of uncertainty. Take it slow, after all, we need to embark on a journey of starfire spreading wildly, a small world surrounding the large present world with advancing zeal. On this premise, it wouldn't hurt to cultivate some corporate culture, reflecting the inclusiveness and uniqueness of the Hustlers sect. Snap! At this moment, the lucky cat turned its head again. People returned from the depths of hell, gasping for air with pale faces. But Su Qi didn't hesitate to launch into a rapid assault. For a moment, Yishou and Fong Li couldn't even react in time. Brother Su and the others also turned their gaze, looking at Su Qi in astonishment, surrounded by a host of screaming ghost faces. Su Qi moved with incredible speed. He had remained still because he had his eye on the ghost face's strength that originated from the abyss, and he had been thinking about how to acquire it. Now, he probably knew how. Boom! The blood sea, with its pungent odor, was bursting forth fiercely. There were countless monsters roaring as they appeared in Su Qi's line of sight. Simultaneously appearing were Blood Fury Value +1, Blood Fury Value +3, Blood Fury Value +2. A surge of hostility emerged wildly. Su Qi also noticed the Lucky Cat's bell necklace shimmering. The closer he got, the more intense the terrifying illusions became, and the power of the bell made these illusions seem to have a real lethal force. But in reality, illusions are still illusions. No matter how realistic they appear, they could never become real. The so-called manifestation of illusions into reality is but the strength within the bell, which harbors anxiety and despair, just like the power brought by the deep red phantom. The closer one gets, the more they would be affected by the ghost face's illusions, supposedly being struck by various monsters. In truth, it was the cuts inflicted by their own weapons in the instant they were attacked by the illusions. The god of anxiety spreads the emotion of self-harm and death. Su Qi did not yet understand the relationship between the other party and the evil god, but judging by the strength that came from the abyss and the ghost faces originating from the same source as the evil god totem, it could be almost certain that the opponent might come from the Abyss Camp. The Abyss Camp and the current World Camp. It seemed that only a small part had been seen so far, and this grand ancient war involved far more than imagined. The bell shone ever more brightly. The red light was incredibly unsettling, and Su Qi felt the effect of the deep red eerie strength. A high spiritual power doesn't mean complete immunity, but with the 20% resistance that comes with spiritual eyes.